Optimistic. More.
So I'm going to call to order the public hearing on the town school district, Hopkinton Village Precinct and Kentucky Village Precinct budgets tonight, Wednesday, February 12th, for the budget committee. We're going to start, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we do that, I just want to thank everyone who's here for taking your evening to spend with us. I know there's snow coming later, so make sure you get home safely as well. But thank you for taking your time out of your evening to participate in the civic discussion. And can I get a member of the committee to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And it was previously requested that we start the meeting by just doing a quick around the table introduction of the members. So we'll keep it short. We won't give you our live story, but just an introduction of kind of your name, how long you've been on the committee, and I guess why you think it's important. Just since this is a chance for us to introduce ourselves, to you folks who have joined with us in person online. So with that, Charlie, do you want to start? We'll go around the table.
Sure. Charlie Cummings. I'm the new kid on the block here and have been excited to dig into the nuances of the budget in town. I live on Courier Road and have three little ones, 6, 5, and 2, and aspire to build a truly great town and school system here. So
I'm Debbie Norris, and I've been on the committee with one little stint in between. I think it's about 8 years now, and I've really enjoyed my time. And I have 2 sons, one who is having a wedding in May, I'm happy to say. So I've enjoyed the budget committee. This is my last one. And I hope that I've helped to make a little bit of a difference. And thank you all for the support over the years.
And Debbie is our honored vice chair.
Don Houston, I'm the old one on the committee. Welcome, Charlie. I've been on here quite a while. I represent the Kentucky Village Precinct. I'm also on the Capital Improvement Committee. And I just try to bring the old history to some of these topics that we have.
I'm Vicki Bram. I represent the Hopkinton Village Precinct. And I think you asked why we think budget committee is important. Or why you wanted to serve. Okay. Yeah. This is my 3rd cycle on the budget committee. And I was ruminating today about how budget committee is the only place where you have a school board member, a select board member, the town administrator, all engaged in a discussion and including the public. And that's pretty cool. It's a unique part of the process.
Hi, I'm Rich Houston. I've been on the budget committee now for about 10 years. I was born and raised here in Hopkinton and am a business owner. I own Pine Lane Farm Dairy Farm in Kentucky Village. Being raised on a dairy farm, our budgets are always very tight. And so I'm always looking for efficiencies, what we can do with, what we can do without, and to try to identify what our true needs are. And I hope to bring a local perspective like Don Houston's brought. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Steve Reddy. I grew up in Hopkinton, I guess one of the multi-generational families that's either on this board or on a couple or the other boards. I actually attended Hopkinton High School. Interesting side note, my class was the last class that was segregated between the 2 villages, which was a thing at the time. Was fortunate enough to go to Tulane on a scholarship. I have an MBA, have always been in small business. And we have 4 kids, 2 by love, 2 by biology, I guess. And the last 2 are graduating this year from Hopkinton, and very proud of that. And this is the, I guess, the 2nd year of my 2nd term on the committee. And I just wanted a chance to help give back to the community, but didn't have the time to run for the school board or the select board for that matter.
My name is Krista Skura. I'm this year's chair of the honor and privilege of holding that position this year. This is also my second year of my second term on the committee. Hopkinton is my home by choice, not by birth, but I joined the committee because I have two kids, 2 and 4, and my husband and I chose this town because it is an amazing place to have a family. And I joined the committee to hopefully help continue its status and reputation and existence as an amazing place to raise a family. So,
My name's Ken Traum. My wife and I have lived in town for over 35 years now, so I'm not a native, but close. Trying to lose my New York accent. My paid career was in the area of public utility regulation and consumer advocacy. And I've tried to carry that approach of consumer advocacy over during my 13 years on the budget committee and 12 years as the select board representative on the budget committee. And what I always am looking to try to do is to balance the legitimate needs of the town and the school with the impact on our taxpayers.
I'm Mark Zankel, and I have served on the budget committee for 9 years, including a few years as chair. I lived in town for 23 years now. My wife and I raised our 2 kids here. They went to Hopkinton schools. I work for a renewable energy construction company and previously ran a nonprofit. So I joined the budget committee or ran for budget committee because I felt like it was a way to get back to the town. Love Hopkinton. Wanted to contribute. I've done a lot of budget management in my career and at home, and thought it was a way to support the town.
My wife and I are celebrating 29 years in Hopkinton in March, and hope looking forward to 29 more. Taught at the high school for a couple of decades and then ran for school board just as COVID was starting. So I'm in my second term, and I've been representative to the budget committee for the last maybe 2 to 3 years. I have to check with Norm for when he left, but I've enjoyed being a part of this group and building that relationship between the school and the budget committee, and so that everybody has the information they need to make good decisions.
all right. Thanks, everyone. And I think, Neil, most folks know you, Neil, but do you want to?
I'm Neil Cass, the town administrator.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, so with that, we thought we would kick it off with a small presentation on the budget committee, an introduction to kind of our role and what we do. So I'll walk through that on behalf of the committee quickly. Again, recognizing that we have a lot to get through tonight. And I guess I forgot to say in my introduction that I currently work in technology and I used to work in finance. And so I try to bring that finance background to the budget committee. But talking about my kids is more fun. All right, cool. Thanks, Neil. Mention my children. All right, so I think it's pertinent to start with kind of what the role of the budget committee is by statute. So I don't want to kind of read you what is exactly written on the slides, but the budget committee by RSA 3216 is an entity that is responsible for preparing the budget and submitting it to the annual special meeting of the voters of the town, school district, and village precincts. We're responsible for conferring with the governing bodies and other officers on revenues and expenditures and service performed to the extent deemed necessary by the budget committee. We're responsible for conducting the public hearing under RSA 325. So that is what we are here for. And forwarding the copies of the final budgets to the governing bodies to be posted and discussed at annual meeting. So while I'm here, some folks often ask, like, is it your budget that goes before the town or is it the school's budget? It is a recommendation that comes out of the budget committee in terms of the bottom line budget that gets proposed to voters, but it is not our budget in the sense that at the end of the day, the spending of the money is up to the town and the school. So our budget is the bottom line budget, but how the money is spent ultimately is determined by the actual entities. And I'll get to a little bit of the nuances of that in a second, because there is a little bit of ambiguity there. And I think, within statute, it's worth just stating that performed to the extent deemed necessary by the budget committee is a little vague and subject to interpretation, right? So that has often been like a matter discussed by members on this committee, what exactly that means. So to give you a little insight into our process overview, in late spring and early fall, we are mostly meeting with on the budget committee itself and discussing with our representative members from the town, the precincts, and the school respectively on how revenues and expenditures are tracking against the prior year budget and forecasts. So that gives us insight as to when we think about the next year budget, where some things are unexpectedly higher or lower. For example, if fuel costs have gone up and those costs are tracking above normal. This year, there were unexpected increases in special education that we discussed. We also use this time period where we're not actively in budget season, so to speak, as an opportunity to kind of dig into issues of special interest to the committee. So this year, that meant digging into a little bit more on the sludge and lagoon projects. We discussed kind of at length with Ken the status of the green bag program. We also use that opportunity this past year, sorry, I'm getting some time mixed up, but we got a briefing of the school on the changes that they made to class size policy, for example. So whatever topics that are sort of bigger, more likely to affect budgets that we might need a little bit of a deep dive on, we use that time period to dig into those a little bit deeper. When we get to about mid-fall and winter, that is when budget season picks up in earnest. So at that point, the departments and boards are preparing their own budgets. They between roughly December and January, those entities are coming and presenting their respective budgets to the committee, including line item budgets. And then there's discussion and follow-up. So this varies by year, how much follow-up and exactly what the discussion points are on. I'll go into a little bit of focus areas for this year. But that is our opportunity, before this public hearing to hear the budgets and request any follow-up items that we might have from the departments or the school board. This year, for example, there was discussion with the school board on their original proposed operating budget and warrant articles that resulted in some back and forth between the budget committee and the board on maybe adjusting those figures before we felt comfortable recommending it as a board. Then we come to this hearing. So tonight, the purpose is that we'll go through the final proposed budgets from the town, the school, the precincts, and we will vote to advance them as a committee to the town meeting and school meeting, respectively. And those meetings then are in March, as most folks are aware, I think. So this slide gets to a little bit deeper of what we try to do and not do. And again, I read you the statute, and so there is some ambiguity in the statute itself. I think broadly speaking as a committee, and there are varying opinions of individuals on this board, but I feel fairly confident that what we don't try to do collectively is micromanage department budgets. We don't make hiring decisions, and we don't set departmental or school policies. So we may inquire as to, why things are the way they are and how they affect revenues and budgets, but ultimately it is not our job to be the operational entity of running the operations of the town or the school. We do review and recommend bottom line budgets for fiscal responsibility and appropriateness. We do ask questions to understand drivers of expense and revenue. We do provide taxpayers with an additional layer of transparency and accountability. And we do provide an all-up view of tax impacts across school, town, and precincts. So that last one I think is particularly important and what I'm going to focus, I think, my next slide on. In that, as Vicky mentioned in her introduction, we are the only entity that is cross-looking at the impact of all the different budgets on the tax rate and determining on a thinking about, at least on a year-on-year basis, how those increases altogether may impact taxpayers in the community. So this year, giving a little bit of insight into things that we discussed and considered. We evaluated and took into consideration recent inflation indices and relevance against town and school expenditures. So we looked at, I think, at least 10, if not 15 past years of the CPI, the MCI, historical changes in the tax rate, and population changes in the town. We use those to kind of just inform our thinking around the appropriateness of the proposed budgets and increases and effects on tax rate. Topics of particular focus for discussion this year were decreases in state funding, particularly as it relates to special education, which is definitely going to be a topic that I think Rob's going to speak to. The townwide revaluation that was done and impact on tax rate just from that event. Large required expenditures such as the lagoon and sludge cleanup projects, increases in special education, lead assessment and removal projects, and potential future required investments in precinct water systems. So those are just a sample of the topics that we dived a little bit more deeply into this year. But hopefully they give you kind of a flavor of the things that the budget committee is trying to provide kind of like accountability and transparency on for taxpayers. So again, each budget is going to be discussed by folks other than me tonight. But if we look at the impacts across the board, and I want to give a special shout out to Don Houston, who made sure that this spreadsheet was put together. We can see that the, let me describe what is here for you first. So the leftmost column is impact of budget changes broken down by the entity that it's coming from. So you'll see the school and then state school, which is state determined. So for our purposes, from like what's coming from our local schools, that's that top line. Below state school, you have municipal. So that's the town and the select board budget. The county, again, is not within our control, but a calculated entity. So really you can kind of focus on the school and the municipal changes there. And you can see the current tax rate derived from those entities. The increase in terms of dollars, percent, and rate, and the resulting proposed total tax rate. So you can see that, for example, the part of the tax rate currently attributable to the school is $14.45. The proposed and recommended is $15.61. If you follow that down, you can see the total recommended increase in terms of dollars is $1.31. That is where the green circle is. And that equates to the total tax rate, which currently is $21.89. And assuming that if the voters were to accept and approve all of the budgets and warrant articles, then the new tax rate would be $23.21. So hopefully that gives you a breakdown in terms of how this all comes together, because again, you'll see the individual budgets and the tax rate impacts from the specific entities tonight. But as a committee, this is how we kind of inform how we think about when this all comes together. Is this sort of like fiscally responsible and appropriate for the town? And I will state that over the course of our, meetings in January and February, it is like this view that resulted in the committee working with the school board to go back and revisit some of their numbers, because I think there was consensus that all up, the first pass add this was a little higher than we were comfortable with as a board. And so that is a conversation that took place, and the school board worked with us and went back and brought down their operating budget and warrant articles a bit to lessen the overall increase all up. Okay, sorry, that was a little long-winded, but hopefully it was helpful.
There's
All right.
another slide.
No, I don't think so. I think that's the end, yeah. All right. With that, we are going to turn it over to Ken to go through the town of Hopkinton operating budget and other warrant articles. Ken, do you
This here's a separate.
want, I think it makes sense for you to stay here probably. Yeah.
Let me just start by thanking everyone who's come to this meeting in person or remotely. It's important that you understand what the Budget Committee and Select Board are proposing for 2025 and why. The budget is the spending plan. The operating budget and warrant articles that are adopted each year is a spending plan for that year. It is but 1 year in a plan that is mindful of the past years and cognizant of the coming years. That is why we have a 20-year capital expenditure plan. Select Board goals. With the realities that we're facing, the Select Board kept several goals in the forefront as this budget was created. To maintain our current level of service, assure that we are competitive with salaries and benefits so that we can retain our current staff and fill positions when we lose staff. We have an experienced and dedicated staff that we want to maintain, which is very cost effective over time. We'd like to continue to move forward with addressing our capital needs, including culverts and bridges. And especially this year, the closing of the lagoons at the transfer station and removing the sludge at the wastewater facility, the lagoons. And of utmost importance, keeping in mind the impact of these decisions on each and every taxpayer, some of whom have less ability to pay than others. So to summarize what's being proposed tonight, this proposal from the Select Board and the Budget Committee results in a bottom line estimated amount to be raised by taxes of 2.54% or 13 cents per thousand. This is a $65 per year increase for a property valued at $500,000. The initial draft or starting point for the Select Board had an 18% tax increase without using any fund balance, and before department heads, the CIP committee, and the Select Board made changes. So the process to arrive at this proposal. Back in August, the department heads started preparing their budgets with the continuing guidance to focus on needs, not wants, as much as possible, while looking for additional cost-effective ways to improve services in town. And as usual, they did a great job. Next, the department heads met with Town Administrator Neil Cass and Finance Director Kelly Henley to review their request. This resulted in the department head's proposed budget, which was provided to the Select Board. Then the Select Board started the process of meeting with each department head to review and scrutinize their requests, including capital ones. The board separately received the recommendations of the CIP committee, the members of, and I'd like to especially thank the members of that committee for the work they did. We also had a presentation and discussion regarding the transfer station where the Hopkinton Select Board is joined by the Webster Select Board as their joint owners of the facility. Then the Select Board began the hard work of trying to balance town needs with affordability to our taxpayers. Again, recognizing that the starting point was a proposed bottom line increase of about 18% on the tax rate. So now let's run through the proposed numbers. On the revenue side, operating revenue, including sewer fund revenue, is projected to be $4,375,000 and an increase of about $135,000 or 3.18% over 2024. And the main drivers are due to the new transfer station tariffs, revenue from commercial haulers, disposal fees, and additional revenues from recycling, and with less revenues from green bags results in a $67,000 increase in revenues. And then the sale of tax deeded property would be increasing 45,000. We've also have a housing grant for 43,750, which is offset by an expense. So there's a net zero bottom line impact. On the operating budget expense, the operating budget being proposed is 10,004,553, including sewer costs, which is a 2.65% or 257,000 higher than 2024. This is when we get to the warrant, it's warrant Article 7. The major changes or drivers in the operating budget are 95,509 or 3% merit wage pool for our very deserving town employees. Remember, the town does not have a union. Health insurance and a reserve for health insurance deductibles totaling 49,000, which is about a 5% increase in total. This is lower than prior years due to a deductible option we developed last year, which provided that most employees did take advantage of. And as I mentioned in the section on revenues, there's an expense relating to the housing grant, which is a net zero impact on the bottom line. Highway shimming and paving, as in prior years, was increased about 5% or 27,500. And engineering costs related to the transfer station lagoons is down 50,000 due to encumbrances from the 2024 budget. And all other changes were below 20,000. For reserve funds, following our long-established 20-year expenditure plan, and with the great assistance of the CIP committee, we're proposing $1,256,000 to go into capital reserve funds in 2025. That's an increase of $226,000 over 2024. This is warrant Article 8. The largest single driver is $350,000 or $250,000 more than was included in last year's reserve funds to the road and bridge CRF to help maintain roads as they are repaired, because maintenance is substantially less costly than rebuilding. The majority of these funds will be used in 2026 through 2028 to help cover the estimated costs for repairing the East Pennacook Road Bridge and the Broad Cove Bridge to the tune of $1.4 million. The other major driver is the $200,000 to go into the sludge removal and sewer equipment CRF. And this is to cover much needed repairs and upgrades at the pump station in Riverside Park. And I bet nobody else knows, I didn't know till Monday, that the pump station at Riverside Park goes down 3 floors below ground. And it's in need of major repairs. On maintenance trust funds, the maintenance trust funds being requested total $118,500 or $16,500 over 2024. These funds are for the maintenance of town-owned facilities, including all the buildings and some of the recreation facilities. There's also a fund that replaces computers at the library. With regards to the use of the fund balance for 2025, the select board is estimating to use $350,000 of the unreserved fund balance to offset taxes. In both 2023 and 2024, we had estimated $360,000, even though for 2024, we only had to use $200,000 of that to produce the tax rate that was anticipated at town meeting. So putting it all together, the amount to be raised by taxes is $6,973,953, or a 2.54% increase. And this equates to a 13-cent increase in the town portion of the tax rate. We're also proposing 3 bonds, all related to sludge. The first is for the cleanup of the lagoons at the transfer station. Second, for sludge removal at the wastewater treatment facility, which will be substantially less expensive if done in conjunction with the first bond. And the third bond is for $120,000 for maintenance work to the sewer systems, with a grant from the New Hampshire DES covering $100,000 of this cost, leaving the town portion at $20,000. So for the transfer station lagoon closing bond, there are 5 septic lagoons located at the transfer station where commercial haulers for many years brought Hopkinton and Webster's septic waste. Early in 2022, the town learned that after many years of approval by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, that the permit for this facility would be very difficult, if not impossible, to renew, and thus decided to close the lagoons, as are all similar facilities throughout the state will be closing. Testing of the material showed that PFAS is present, thus increasing the cost dramatically. However, we are fortunate that this site is next to the closed landfill, so groundwater monitoring is already taking place in the immediate area. Even so, the cost to close this site is $4,150,000, excuse me. So why do the closing now? There are a number of factors that dictate why the closure should happen now. The lagoons are contributing to groundwater contamination in violation of New Hampshire DES and EPA groundwater quality standards. Off-site disposal, as opposed to on-site due to PFAS, is estimated to cost over $14 million. And previously, when that estimate was developed, it was going to Canada. So who knows if it would even be able to go to Canada anymore. We have received a grant for this from the New Hampshire DES Clean Water Revolving Fund, which allows us to borrow money at low interest rates and includes $401,000 of loan forgiveness. The sludge at the wastewater treatment facility lagoons has to be removed. And if the project is done in conjunction with this project, then sludge can be contained at the transfer station, resulting in substantial cost savings there. And delay will only result in future cost increases, with little likelihood of being able to take advantage of the previously mentioned grant and $401,000 of forgiveness. So the advantage of the Clean Water Revolving Fund, more specifically, of the $415,000 cost, $401,000 will be forgiven. No bond counsel is required, and the interest rate is very low. Until the project is completed, there'd be a bridge or construction loan at 1% interest. Once the project is completed, the annual cost to Hopkinton is estimated to start at $219,000 in the first year and will decline about $5,000 to $6,000 annually, assuming a 20-year term. We've assumed slightly over 3% interest rate, and Webster would be responsible for 25% or its share of the costs. The wastewater sludge removal bond will be for up to $712,000 for sludge removal, which will be done in conjunction with the lagoon cleanup. By doing it this way, the town could save potentially millions. The cost of the wastewater sludge removal bond would be a 10-year bond with costs assumed to start in 2026 at $99,680, then decreasing about $3,000 annually. The interest rate assumed is 4%. And the reason this bond would be for only 10 years is that sludge removal will have to be done again in 10 to 20 years. The final bond, the wastewater infrastructure assessment. This bond is being requested now because we've received a grant for $100,000 of the $120,000 cost. This grant is also from the New Hampshire DES Clean Water Revolving Fund, but it needs to be treated as a bond in order to receive the forgiveness, thus the need for a separate warrant article. The bond is largely to gather information on the condition of the sewer pipes by running a camera through them. This will allow for future planning and help to determine if stormwater is infiltrating the system. And the first year payment of that bond is estimated to be $4,410. So that's an abbreviated recap of where we are. So I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you, Ken. We are going to open it up to public comment. Before I do that, just very, very quickly, Rich was right. I did have one last slide to go over. I won't bring it up now, but you all probably have this paper that the long one. The top of it was on my slide. And this is just the budget committee's recap of the impact of all of the budgets together. So the numbers that I showed on my slide are here, and there's also how it would affect a $200,000 property, $400,000 property, and $600,000 property, sort of before in the first section there. So feel free to refer to that handout. And then we have the estimated tax rate impact broken down by warrant article on the bottom, just for your ease of looking into those details as we go through all the different presentations. So I should have mentioned that in my introduction, but I breezed through it for brevity. All right. Thank you again, Ken, for that presentation on the town. And I would like to open it up to public comment and questions on the town presentation and budget. While folks are thinking about making their way or raising their hands online, friendly reminder, we do aim to have a courteous and respectful dialogue from members on this committee as well as the public. So I see a hand on Zoom from Mom. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and make your comment.
Hi, sorry, I'm Mom. My name's Amelia Feudner. I am just asking if you could please put that last slide up for us to see, because anybody at home does not have that handout.
Do you mean the budget committee one?
The last slide that broke down all of the budgets and the increases per property.
Okay. Yes, sure. So I think you do have the information. This is in the drive, right?
It is.
So if you have access to the documents online, you should have the handout. We can go ahead and throw it up on the screen again. I think she wants the per property slide, Neil, which was in my presentation.
Just that last slide that was missed. But if it's online, I can probably try to find it.
Yeah, if you go to the bottom, the last slide, you should see it. And it should be both the presentation and the spreadsheet handout, both of which have the information you're looking for, should be online. So is there one more slide after that? Yeah, there you go. So again, this is the all up taxes on $200,000, $400,000, and $600,000 properties.
This is the number one question asked by citizens. How much is my taxes going to go up?
Mm-hmm.
This is the best way we can communicate that to you.
Yeah. And so the leftmost side is the total taxes today. The second column is the dollar increase, percent increase, rate increase. And then on the right, you have like the all up tax bill, new tax bill, if everything is approved by the voters. All right.
Can I just, I just want to make sure that nobody misinterprets the slide. So the number on the far right, 4642, for example, that's not the increase. That's the total.
Yeah.
The increase would be that minus the current tax rate of 4378.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, 264 is the increase in that row. Good point.
We have a question. We just stand up.
Yeah, you can stand up and come to the mic. And if you can just state your name and address for the record.
Hi, is it on?
I think it's on.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
It is. I'm Emily Burak. I live at 1526 South Road. Just a quick question on the things that you were telling us about, Ken, on the sludge. I noticed you talked about a lot of grants that were coming from the state. Do you know if those grants are tied to federal funding that may be going away, or do you already have the money in hand for those grants, or?
I've been asking Neil that about every other week
Okay.
and believe that this money is in the hands of the state.
Oh, okay, so it's not one of those things that.
It does not sound at all like it's at risk.
Thank you. Last call for public comment. If you're online and okay, yep. So just as a friendly reminder, you should be able to raise your hand on Zoom. I see somebody has done it on iPad, so you can go ahead and unmute yourself. And please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, this is Rita Blanchard, 111 Barton Corner Road, Hopkinton. I got a couple of questions. Is this video going to be posted?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. A lot of people ask me, and I'm just, quite frankly, going to put this out there so they can listen to the video. Does this budget committee meet year round? Or only at budget season?
We meet year round with the exception of typically June, July, and sometimes August, just depending on need.
Okay, thank you. What does, I saw no bond consult on one of the slides. What does that mean?
I did not
Yes.
understand.
I think she saw the bullet that said no bond counsel required and is asking what that means.
Well, that's just a savings to us. If we went through the call it the traditional method, we'd be incurring bond costs there that we're avoiding.
Thank you. Oh, shoot.
Thank you, Rita.
Bob Mattio, 108 Park Ave. I had a question on the precincts, that number.
The precincts will be separately.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah,
afraid of.
I don't have any control over that.
Gotcha. And that's not, those are separate, not townwide, those, whatever those increases are specific to that precinct.
Correct.
Tricia Lambert, 305 Galloping Hill Road. So going back to the federal funds, or it looks like it's a revolving loan fund, which I think is general fund. Not sure. I know of other revolving funds that are. But if it is federal funds, what would be the plan? Some may or may not be frozen. Is there a plan to come back to the table? I guess I don't know if you have an answer to it, but I'm just throwing it out. And tomorrow, I believe the governor is going to put out her budget. So there might be things in there that also may put some of this questionable. I don't know. I don't know her budget yet, but I'm just throwing it out as a point.
My understanding is that we're okay. If for some reason it turned out that we would not be in line for the funds, I think the select board would have to, decide how to proceed, but I think we have to proceed. It would cost a lot more.
But would it come back to the budget committee? I mean, if something significant happens, which I don't know which one it would be, would there be what is the procedure for that? Do you just go and change it, put it through the way it is on March 8th or,
My understanding would be that if something happened between now and town meeting, we'd have to explain and present that change at town meeting.
but still put those funding numbers forward, even if it's not available?
Well,
I guess this is all new for us. I get it. I mean, I'm throwing it out there just to be thought about.
yeah, I mean, we all have concerns about a lot of things, let me say.
Understand.
If we didn't have any, if we found out we're not going to have any grants, we'd have to, I think we'd have to just, the select board would have to present at town meeting, what that means.
Okay. Just, I would just ask if that could be really communicated well to the town, to the taxpayers, so that we understand that process, because I think it would be new for everybody. So, thank you.
Ken, just on that point, can I make a comment? I mean, I think two things. The Clean Water Revolving Fund is not general fund. That's a separate fund. And so it's a separate fund that the state holds that was originally federal funds that were granted to states for the purposes of supporting clean projects that improve the quality of drinking water, but it's a separate fund. So it can't be pulled into the general fund or used for general fund purposes. It's in the state coffers, like Ken said. Yeah. But I think to your point of like, what happens if something unforeseen, those things could be happen. The warrant itself doesn't change because the warrant is to bond the amount of money. What could change is the estimated tax rate impact. And I think that's something the select board could speak to if circumstances change between now and town meeting.
And certainly if circumstances change, we want to be as transparent as possible and let people know how it changed and what the impact is. Totally agree with the concern. Thank you.
Non-groupal 121 Amesbury. Quick question, Ken. Did I understand this, that the Webster would have a bond and then Hopkinton would have a bond? Are they two separate, or because they're paying one portion?
Yeah, at this point, it would be one bond and Webster would pay 25% of it. At what came out at our meeting Monday night is we're looking at a 20-year bond. Webster is interested in maybe a 10-year bond. And so they're going to investigate whether it could be split in two right off the bat. So that might mean, two bonds, but right now it's one bond and Webster would take its share of it.
Okay, because I was just thinking if their bond didn't pass and ours passed, how would it be allocated for resources for what you guys are trying to do? That's what I was trying to, so.
They're responsible for their share.
Yeah,
period.
yeah, I was just trying to.
Hello, Josh Robinson, Brown Hill Road. So my question is in regards to the septic ponds and the problem with the PFAS. And it seemed from what I was reading that the intention is to continue, once this problem is resolved, to continue to provide septic, a place to dump septic. No? Okay, good. Good. All right.
Maybe some of your confusion, and it was mine originally, is that there's the septic lagoons at the transfer station, which is separate from the lagoons at the wastewater treatment facility.
Yeah, no, the one that the wastewater facility makes sense.
All right. I don't see any more hands raised or anyone else approaching the mic. So we will go ahead and close public comment on the town presentation. Thank you to everyone who spoke and asked questions.
Krista,
Yes.
can we just take a moment to thank Ken for all of his service and hard work, because I think this is his last budget committee meeting.
Most of the time, it's been a pleasure.
I think it's absolutely a wonderful suggestion, Vicky, and thank you for doing that. We have a few other members who I think it might be last meeting as well. I won't interrupt our flow now, but maybe before we take like a potty break or something, I will say thank you to those members and recognize them. All right. Mr. Nato, do you want to
Kick it off?
Kick us off.
Sure.
Yeah,
See how
so
low Ken's got this seat first. I was trying to hide. You did a good job. All right. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming. I'm going to do the school district budget presentation as well as our warrants. It's fairly lengthy, so I'll try to speed where I can speed. I think many of you in the room have already seen these things. If I need to tap the brakes, somebody in the back can say, tap the brakes. That would be great. So with no further ado, here we go. So topics for tonight, key budget drivers, enrollment and class size, department details, how budgets are broken down by various schools and departments. And then into the warrants, we'll look at our contracts and trust funds, and then a snapshot and tax impact. Our process, much as Krista and Ken talked about, starts in September with our departments and buildings going through, starting with teachers essentially, and then departments, going to principals, coming to the school board in October. Some work sessions there, initial presentations. In December, things start to tighten up and we sort of give a rough picture to the budget committee. And then in January, the warrant articles begin to come together and we finalize our budgets, which happened just a couple of weeks ago. Budgeting goals, strive for stable funding for operational expenses. I think if you look at our operational expenses over the last 2 years, they've been pretty close to flat. So trying to restrain spending where we can. Evaluate special education needs and appropriate supports. This has probably been our biggest challenge in the last couple of years, and not just Hopkinton, but throughout the state. It's been talked about how costs have been downshifted with lower percentages coming to us. So that's still a difficulty. Over the last 4 years, we've tried to move away from a large end of year fund balance. So putting things into the budget that were not previously dedicated in the budget, but simply paid for out of fund balance at the end of the year. The long-term planning and forecast of long-term financial impacts, that's been a tough one for me as an econ teacher. We talked about looking at various measures of inflation, and for us, it really comes down to how we manage our trust funds. So are we saving enough for the future, paying ourselves first, so to speak, to mitigate big ups and downs in the tax rate? Well, that'll come out in the CIP. And then the last goal for the year was to negotiate 2 fair and fiscally responsible contracts. So we'll go through both the HEA contract and the Teamsters contract. Key operational drivers, this year, you can see our total projected increase at the top at 956,781. Of that, 770,869 is special education. So again, these are costs that we incur to provide the necessary services to students, usually through outplacement, usually in other parts of the state, and then the transportation costs that go along with that. Xing that out, you can see some of our other responsibilities. Our first student bus contract up 5%, which they've treated us very, very well over the years and through COVID. Software subscriptions, diligent community, which is our ability to share information and documents through multiple platforms for folks who want to look at things on their phone or on their iPad or on their computer, et cetera. Legal fees, property and liability insurance is up a little bit. Technology to maintain current levels. I don't think I need to remind anybody how tech dependent we are and keeping up with that so that we can provide the services that we need. Some materials for our new English language curriculum supplies, and then paving and parking lot repairs. Those are things that are not in the CIP. When something is in the CIP, it means we're going to pave the whole enchilada, like the whole thing. This is repairing things that need attention because they're big holes and would hurt people. Cars are little humans, and we don't want that to happen. So across all other budgets, $23,061. Projected enrollment over at Hal Martin, really no difference. Projected for 290, down 13 at Maple Street, and we'll see some class size changes there that we'll talk about in a minute. And the middle high school is up a little bit at +5. So that's enrollment. Whoop, there we go. Anticipated class sizes for 25-26. So the only real changes here in terms of staffing would be grades 4-5, where currently there are 4 fourth grade teachers. That's going to flip. There will be 4 fifth grade teachers and 3 fourth grade teachers. So as that class moves along, that will continue. Well, actually, it won't continue because in grade 6, they become part of the programmatic budget. As 6th grade is technically a part of the middle school in terms of how kids are taught. So a decrease of 8 students district-wide. Total budget, 27,491,895. The difference of 615,432. So this is down from where we were about a month ago. I think it was 3 meetings ago, where the budget committee looked at our budget, and I think everybody agreed that everything was rational, logical. There wasn't anything in there that didn't make sense, but it was still too high. And the recommendation from the committee was to try to bring that number down. The discussion went between 100K and 250K. We went back to the school board's finance committee and had some long discussions there and found some ways to reduce that by $358,000. So an additional $108,000 then was the high end of the request from the budget committee. And I think this is part of, earlier for me, sitting on budget committee has given me another opportunity to listen to the public in different ways, and also from different folks within the community that are on the budget committee. So that was part of the goal, was to meet those many needs that are out there, in large part due to revaluations as well. So the difference is 615,432, keeping in mind that that special education increase was 777. We would have a negative number here this year if it were not for that, but that's okay. That's what we do. Special ed specifically, 578 out-of-district school tuition, 207 out-of-district transportation. Decrease in contracted services, so this could be things that perhaps are no longer required in an IEP, or more likely things that we're able to pick up in-house through occupational therapy services or speech services or the like. Salaries and benefits, salaries down 202,170. So that's the reduction in the assistant business administrator's position, which we all knew was going to be a one-year scenario. And then also in terms of teacher turnover. So we've talked about this for my entirety of the time on the board, and probably boards before that. The goal of the early retirement system is that when people leave, like myself at 56, 57, you want to hire perhaps younger and lower on the salary scale and save some money. So that's part of those savings is seen in that decrease in salaries. Decreases in benefits. Health increase was only 6% this year, not the 19% we've seen recently. Dental increase was 5%. State of New Hampshire retirement, we've gone down 2% in terms of what we need to contribute there. Some thanks happen in the state, right? There we go. And employee plans shifted to buyout. So people choosing to take the buyout either for themselves or for a 2-person or a family saves us some money. So salaries and benefits down 1.12% or $341,000. The significant staffing changes, we already mentioned the ABA position. And now the one addition is the English teacher at the high school. And we've talked about this a lot. We have a fairly large 8th grade class coming up, and probably kudos to the middle school for having such large classes over the last 2 years. But when it gets to the high school time, it gets more difficult to do that as kids begin to select electives and whatnot. So adding a teacher here to reduce the burden, not only in the English department, but across other departments. This will open up some space in science and social studies as kids move through their high school years. That class moves through their high school years. Facilities budget changes, our facilities director, very quickly when he came on board, made it clear that we were under budgeted in a number of areas on an annual basis, and been trying to increase that budget slowly to meet all those needs so that we don't have a lot of maintenance and repair issues that might require a bond down the road. So this is another example of gradually increasing that budget to where it needs to be. 93,923 seems like a large percentage increase, but it's far smaller than a $10 million bond might be. This covers things again, paving, seal coating, parking lot repair, things that are not in the CIP, in equipment replacement in various departments. Technology budget. I think Mr. Stone takes it on the chin a little bit here because we got a new phone system that drops into his budget. So that's school-wide, and again, the Diligent community, which is again, that info document sharing software. The consolidation into tech helps us be more streamlined and efficient across all the schools. Curriculum budget changes, the English language arts curriculum has changed, so with Amplify workbooks and printed materials for that. The reduction or elimination of Rubicon, which was, for those of you who've been around for a while, the wonderful world of curriculum mapping and how that's done. I'm having flashbacks as I say those words. Sorry, $600 budget shift from the SAU for teacher tuition. So that's just putting things in its appropriate bucket, so to speak. I really have to give kudos to Ms. Brown and Ms. Sindoni. These next two, just a really great example of principals working really hard to keep their budgets relatively level. So thank you for that. Same at Maple Street School. Really, really hard work. I think, when people look at school budgets, they often think, well, as I guess I always say, there aren't a lot of wants or a lot of needs, but even managing those needs are difficult. So moving things around to kind of keep things level is greatly, greatly appreciated. Middle high school, 18,000 up 6%. So increased supplies, dues, and fees. The MyFlex Learning, which is that student scheduling software. I have to make this really clear. This is not like for a hall pass. Let's make that clear. We have 460 students in the middle high school that have an advisory block that may be going to different teachers, different places, and managing those 460 students with paper and pencil is not necessarily easy. With this, you can track students, you know where they're going, other teachers know where they're going. It is the way things ought to be done in 2025. It's definitely not a hall pass. Sorry for my tone. Athletic budget changes, increases in cost of travel and fees, officials and whatnot. The SAU budget, transportation contract, as already stated, was up 5%. That does not include our special education transportation. Property and liability insurance up 9%. Panda Docs is the secure signing software. So when you sign your name on your phone that doesn't look anything like your name, that's what we're talking about. But now you can do all of those documents. So when things go home to parents, for instance, in the fall, it can all be done in that manner. Medicaid and phone systems move to their appropriate budgets, which would be special education or technology. My friend Rich Houston's favorite topic, full-time employees. Right, Rich?
You got it.
All right. So we've gone from 197 to 198.73. I'm not quite sure what the 0.73 of a human is, but that's kind of the way things work out. So this is really 2 additional IAs at Harold Martin School and that English teacher at the high school. And there will also be some other moving parts that will take place, but that's where we're at for that 1.73. So there's our overall operating budget again, in case you missed it the first time. 2.29%, down from 2.79% after our first run through for a tax rate impact of 44 cents. And I'm going to breathe and take a drink of water. So Article 3, so now we're into our warrant articles. This is the HEA contract that was negotiated this fall, and I'd like to thank Mr. Zipke and his team for that negotiation process. I think it's really, really helpful for school boards to sit down with the teachers union to get a better pulse of the schools and what's going on and where the needs are. It was a very productive few months of our time. So the contract will go over the major changes. The cost in the first year is $455,365, $487,680 in the second, and $472,946 in the third. This is a bargaining unit of approximately 83-ish people, but it covers about 100 teachers. Just people have that context in mind. The major changes from the school district side was increase in the cost share for health insurance. This has been something that's been hotly debated and discussed for a number of years, particularly after we went to 100% share in 2017. That number has been coming down. And in this particular contract, the driver, in other words, the one that we budget for, is the SOS 20. It's probably the insurance plan that most people take. The current cost share is 7%, and that is going to 10 in the first year, and then 12 in the second, and 15% in the third. There are two other plan offerings for teachers, the SOS 25 and the high deductible plan. I forget what the OA means, so we won't bring that up. And those are 7, 10, and 10. And the reason that that percentage is lower is those plans cost considerably less. So we save money when people move to them, and hence the lower cost share. This side sort of breaks out where the costs and savings are. So you can see in year one, the wages at $571. Schedule B, that's our funky system of paying coaches and department heads and student council folk at the lower elementary schools. And if the contract passes, there'll be some additions at Harold Martin School, which would be great. Healthcare new savings of $97,000. So again, that is an impact of that cost sharing changing. And then year 2 and year 3, it becomes a little lower as they increase. That does not mean that the $97,000 in savings goes away. It's still there. It's just already in the budget, so you can't double count it. That would be cheating. Okay. The dental plan, it's also some savings. There was a switch there between basic care and managed care, or major care, excuse me, which means, you go and get a filling or a crown versus bridge work. Percentages dropped in one category and went up in the other. So that was $46,000 in savings. Life insurance went from 1.5 times salary to 1 time salary. The curriculum hourly rate, so that's the rate that teachers get paid in the summer for doing work on their courses, went from $32 to $40. And the early retirement increase, so we have a system of incentives if you leave early, retire early, I don't know if leave early is the right word. So we increased those numbers by 2,000 for people ages 55, 56, 57, 58, and 59, where we get the greatest return on our dollar when we're rehiring new staff. So total cost, again, in the bold are the 3 going across. The base increase to the contract is 4.75% in the first year, and then 3.75 in years 2 and 3. Why more in the first year? In any negotiation, to get something, you have to give something. And the big thing here was the cost share. So in order to offset that, to keep people whole and, seeing a fair raise, was to offer a higher base increase in that first year. And then we did a little, what does this look like for a real person? So if you are somebody Master's 7 in this current contract year, your salary is $61,659. And then you can see your biweekly salary be $2,372, and your health insurance share is $93. So take home pay, and I'm assuming that includes all taxes and all the rest of it coming out, will be $18.41. Now, as we move across the contract, you can see the annual salaries increasing, but you can also see the biweekly health insurance costs increasing. So there you're going to take a peek at what people's take-home pay would be. So between the 24-25 and 27-28, this person would realize an increase of $323 in their take-home pay, while also sharing, well, not quite double. I don't want to get Mr. Zipke mad at me and do bad math here, but an increase in their healthcare costs. Teamsters contracts. So these are our custodians. It's a fairly small pool of about 10 workers. Similar process where it was good to sit down and discuss things financially of nature with people that I've known for a long time, and hear their concerns and where they're going, and them hearing ours as well. So this was a 4-year contract, and the reason for that is we were stuck in a cycle where no one likes to bring 2 contracts to school district meeting, right? That does not help the tax rate. So now things are stepped off where we'll have HES contract, HEA contract, and Teamsters all on different years. So again, it decreases the pressure on the tax rate. The estimated increases are there: 38,492, 27,192, 28,427, and 28,003. They are also seeing an increase in their cost shares. So the driver is still the SOS 20. They're going to go 7, 8, 9, and 10. They also have a second plan that is the SOS 25, also at 7, 8, 9, and 10. Their base pay would increase by 3.8% annually. And we also have an example of what that would look like. Well, that'll be on the next slide, so bear with me. So again, this is the costing and savings broken out. You can see the wages, the healthcare savings, the dental savings, same scenario with the Teamsters as with the HEA. A little bit of an increase in their life insurance to 50,000. It was at 25, and a little bit of an increase in their work apparel. So 3.8% and the tax impact of 2.8 cents. Now, the example. So this would be for a night custodian. Year 1 comes in at $20.15. That would be someone working right now. You can see their biweekly health insurance share is $80 and their take-home pay is $12.76. And as you work into the last year of the contract, they move up to $24.76, with their cost share increasing to $168. And now their take-home pay would be $14.84. So that's a difference of $158. More water, more breathing. Sorry. Now we're on to the trust. So the special ed trust has been in existence since 2016. This is a little historical view for you. Back then it had $169,529, and as of June 30th, 2024, it had $271 in it. In that 8-year period, we had only tapped into this trust once in 2018-19 for $40,000. We just agreed to withdraw $240,000 at our meeting in January due to that major uptick. We are still upside down in special ed this year, a little over $400,000. So the trust was there for this exact reason, and it was the time to use it. The ask for the special ed trust this year is to start to refill those coffers. So the request for this one is $100,000 to slowly build that trust back up. Our initial request was for $225,000, which was a level where we felt a lot more comfortable in terms of some unexpected costs. But we also realized that while that might be the most rational plan. It wasn't the most affordable plan. And that's why we brought that number back down to 100,000. The CIP and my least favorite one to present and explain. This is a lot of moving parts. This could be a presentation all by itself. So we're asking for $350,000 for the CIP Maintenance Trust. Again, you've got a little bit of a historical view as to what has been requested in the past. This has been historically underfunded. So we finally feel like we're building to a point where we're getting to where we need to be. The projected need would be $425,000 to meet all of the costs in our 10-year CIP. That would be the number. The town CIP met with our CIP group, and there's a little bit of disagreement as to whether or not 425 is the right number, but that recommendation was about 375. So we're definitely playing in the same ballpark. We're not off by hundreds of thousands of dollars. In 24-25, we requested and received $350,000. It is important to note that 150 of that came from taxation. The other 200 came from fund balance. It is really easy to get a yes vote on the floor of school district meeting when you're funding something from fund balance and it doesn't impact the tax rate. So this year, the $350,000 is all from taxation, not from fund balance. So it's an increase to the tax implication of $200,000. A little bit about how this works. And again, this is a living document. It changes all the time. So if we go back to this year, 24-25, the starting balance in the upper right-hand corner is 341. Last year was approved $350,000 coming in. And then you can see the work that is being done in this year. So the total cost of that being $342,000, and what would remain would be $348, because now we've added in the $350 from the start of the year. That does mean that certain things didn't get done. So those deferred projects, the gym floor abatements, hard laminate on stairs, stair tread replacement didn't happen. So we sort of keep track of those and where that's going to wrap back into the CIP at some point in the future. For 25-26, we're again asking for that $350,000 appropriation. Some of the work to be done next year, you can again see in that right-hand column, the big, I'm not going to say again, I get in trouble when I say belly whopper one, but the belly whopper one at the bottom is the boiler and hot water heater replacement to the tune of $359,000. That leaves us with a remaining trust balance of $254. And then the deferred project list continues to grow, keeping in mind that as long as we're appropriating that $425, we should be okay. Technology trust, the ask here is for $30,000, 15,000 of which will come from the unassigned fund balance and 15,000 of which will come from taxation. Again, the history here is this started during COVID, $25,000 coming in and then $25,000 again. In 23-24, 23,000 went out, and that was for phone system work. Currently has 26,000 in it. This would be for things like replacing some of those Chromebooks that we brought in during COVID and now have that one-to-one relationship with students. And also the big ticket items like servers and switches and relays and things that I, quite frankly, have no understanding of, and just look to Mr. Stone to explain it to me when we have those discussions. The last trust is the vehicle trust, and we would be asking for $10,000 to go into this fund. This would all be coming from the unassigned fund balance at the end of the year. We feel that's a safe number to use those funds for. And again, the historical, well, sorry, jumped in the gun here. So 2011, that's the Ford Econoline van that we just voted to replace. And in 2022, we bought the new minibus for field trips, athletic events used by coaches and whatnot. And then here is the historical balances of the vehicle trust. So we think once we buy this new used van, and the minibus being relatively new, we feel like we've got some time to build this back up to where we'd have enough money to purchase our next vehicle at $10,000. Big scary snapshot that yes, it will be available in printed form at school district meeting because you can't read it on a big screen. You probably can't read it now either, but it's going to get broken into two smaller parts in two slides coming up. I just wanted to draw your attention to the, I guess, orangish color. I don't know what that is up in the right. I guess it's orange. The revenue changes. So state adequacy, still relatively stable, swept going up, but that's nice because we pay for that. So I'm not sure the benefit there, but anyway. Other state aid going down, Medicaid dropping down, and the use of fund balance, $250,000. So in last year's budget, we drew more out of fund balance than we are drawing this year. This year, we're only drawing $100,000 out of fund balance as revenue. So that shows us a decrease on our side. And that's going to get that 206,979. When we drop down into the green in the operating budget, you will see that 206,979. And now I think you're going to see it in bigger numbers. Yes, you will. I'll go back to the other one in a minute. So this is each part of the warrant broken down. So you have the operating budget at 27,491. You see the increase. You see the budget tax impact of 44 cents, the decrease in revenue, the revenue tax impact, and then the net tax impact of 59 cents because of the decrease in revenue. The HEA contract at 455, 33 cents, and the net tax impact, of course, is 33 cents. And the Teamsters, 38,492, the budget tax impact of 3 cents. The maintenance trust CIP, so the ask is 350, but the impact on the tax rate is 200,000 because the 150 that we asked for last year is still in the budget. So we're only increasing that by 200. So that's 14 cents. And then the special ed trust, 100,000, that is 7 cents. And then the tech trust at 30,000, that's 3 cents. Except we asked for 15 last year, so the net impact is only 2. And the vehicle trust, we did 10,000, and that's actually negative 0.02 cents. So total tax impact of 116. Let me just go back here. Contingency fund, previously known as Article 10 and forever to not be spoken in that way again because it really is a contingency fund and not an Article 10. That was the name of the warrant when it came to be. So we're going to draw 400,000 from the contingency fund for this year and 100,000 from fund balance. And again, the rationale for the lower number in fund balance is we still have a lot of concern about pressure from special ed to get us through the end of the year. And then the tax impact, all warrants. So going back to Dawn and the budget committee's piece, this is sort of breaking it down so you can see by your home assessment what each one would cost you. So for the operating budget in my home, which is a little more over the $500,000 mark, $294.83, and you can work your way across, the all-in for the NATO hacienda would be 577.39, actually a little higher than that because the assessment is 535, but there you go. And I think this means I am done for now.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
All right, so just to provide some guidance on what we're going to do here, we're going to open it up for public questions and comments on Rob's school district presentation. And then after that, I think we should take a quick break and allow people to use the restroom. And then we'll go into the precinct budgets. So that is the plan. So we're not there. We're not to the bathroom break yet. We're going to do public comment first. Friendly reminder, respectful atmosphere here. Go ahead and come up and introduce your name and address if you'd like to make a public comment. Or raise your hand if you're on Zoom.
Good evening, Ian Tewksbury, 73 Irish Hill Road. I wanted to start by letting everybody know that I've been a union member for over 20 years. I was union president multiple times. I've been involved with numerous contract negotiations. Both of my parents are retired teachers. Both of them were union members as well as in their respective districts negotiating for their contracts. But I did need to come tonight and speak to the budget committee that I felt that as both a taxpayer and as a union member, that I feel that the HEA contract that has been brought forward to you by both the school board and the union is irresponsible. And I'm asking that the budget committee not support the HEA contract tonight. If this contract was brought a year from now, I would have absolutely 100% supported it. But with the property reevaluation, this contract should not have been brought forward. The contract does have a savings. It absolutely has a savings by an increase in the percentages that the HEA members are going to be paying with their health insurance. However, when you factor in the percentage increase on the base, 4.75, 3.75, and 3.75 for each of the 3 years of the contract, but then you factor in the step increases that each of the teachers get when they go from the first year, the second year to the third year. I did my homework. I took apart the current teacher's contract, and you're looking at an average for teachers that are less than 16 years in the district or less than 16 years as professional teachers. They're going to be getting approximately a 22% increase over the course of 3 years. And the teachers with more than 16 years in the district are looking at a 25% increase. And so what I would have done if I was a union member based on the large tax reevaluation that hit everybody is a 1-year contract, no increases on anything, no changes, but everybody moves up a step. I would never, ever suggest that a teacher go backwards. You know, you should never take home less this year or next year than you did this year. Nobody should ever have to do that. But with a 0% increase in the base of the step system, everybody moves up a step. I think the lowest percentage increase is 2%, and some of the steps are 5%. So every teacher is going to be moving forward and not going backwards. So those are the reasons that I asked the budget committee to not support this contract. Thank you.
Can I just respond?
Yeah.
Can you put the slideshow back up?
Sure.
Thanks.
Right now, there you go.
There we go.
Sorry.
All right.
Disappeared. Let me try it again.
Okay, so one, thank you, Ian, and Ian is accurate, right? So you have an increase to the base of the 4.75, and then if you're on the step scale, there's a step increase as well. However, I had a similar thought, like, what does this look like? And that's why in this model, when you factor everything in, is not 22% over the course of the contract. So I did my math, and what you're looking at for this person would be 5.7% in the first year, and then 5.81% in the second year, and 5.1% in the third year. That's factoring in the increase to their salary and then the decrease because of their increased costs in healthcare. So that, you know, part of the way teacher scales work is you do have those steps that happen. And if you stay in that lane, you get that step increase and the base moves those numbers accordingly. But that's how this math works out. And I'm not sure if that's the same as what you were thinking, but
is this just a master's as opposed to a master's plus 15 or master's plus 30?
This is just a master.
Just a master's.
Yeah.
Okay. Because in looking at what I found, so that's a master's, I'm sorry, master's plus step 7.
Yes.
So then what's it, 61, 250, 252 is where they're currently at?
I've got 61, 659 up there, but
Okay, I pulled it straight off the current contract,
that's
but
fine.
going from that step to the next step is a 4% increase. So going from the current step up to step 8 is a 4% difference from 61, 252 to 64, 014. That's the current contract going from step 7 to step 8, which is a 4% step. And then you add in the 4.75. And that's how I came up with, for that 1 year, it's 8.75. And then you add it up, and that's how I came up with the approximately 22. I didn't go down to the penny.
Yeah, I'm not questioning the math. I'm just like, this was part of the reason why we wanted to have this slide so that we could have this conversation in terms of what those percentages work out to be. I think when people look at a teacher's scale, and I think I put a bunch of copies over there, it's a little wonky, right? You never really.
It's very wonky.
It's a very wonky thing. But for me, we're also looking at, the start of our scale starts at $44,000, right? So you come out of school with a bachelor's degree and maybe a whole pile of debt, and you're looking at 44 grand. And the step scale is made and designed so that people can get to a more livable wage at a more rapid rate, right? We can't, we tried really hard to increase our base BA1 to that $50,000 mark, but it would have skewed the whole scale. That's why we have those, first 2 years, you get $1,000 extra to get you to that point. So
absolutely, you hit top step,
Yeah.
the master's degree in 16 years.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you want to do because you want to incentivize people to stay here. You don't want to have a 30-step system, so it takes me 30 years to max out. You don't want to do that. So the step system itself is designed very well. So
and if there were to be no changes, then the people at the top of the scale would see no change in their salary because that number is not going to go up. They're going to see that plus whatever longevity they have.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Steve, and then we'll take comments. There's also a hand raised. So I think I'm going to do, with respect to you, sir, I'm going to do Steve, hand raise, then you.
I just want to address the reassessment thing because that months later, I am still getting questions on that from taxpayers and others. And it was somewhere where I think, we shot ourselves in the foot with the communication. There should have been a letter that went out with a new assessment that explains how it works. But since it is a public forum with fairly good attendance, so every town in the state of New Hampshire is required to do this every 5 years. It's not something Hopkinton just decides to do on its own. By statute, which is a fancy word for law, a reassessment is revenue neutral, which means the town is not allowed to make more money after the reassessment than they did before the reassessment. It is revenue neutral. Your taxes do not go up because of a property reassessment. However, over the 5 years, different types of properties appreciate at different levels. So when we did the last assessment 6 years ago, waterfront properties in this town and small commercial properties, because it was before COVID, were hit hard. This time it was more affordable homes in town that were hit hard. Typically, a third of the properties end up paying less in their percentage of taxes. A third pay the same, and a third pay more. It's not due to the reassessment. It is due to the gain of market value of your particular property. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, we're going to do Mr. Feller. If you want to go ahead and unmute, you can make your comment.
Thank you, but if Mr. Zipke is trying to address the prior question, I'll yield my time until he's done.
Okay. And I see that there's another hand. We will get to you after this comment. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Scott Zipke, Westridge Circle. So as Rob alluded to, I was on the negotiating team for the teachers. So just to address Mr. Tewksbury's comments there, right at the end of his comments of his response there, Rob kind of hit the nail on the head. I'm not sure about where the 16-year plus 22% increases that Mr. Tewksbury is talking about. I am off step. The increase to the base is what is I'm not getting a step. So it doesn't compound for all those teachers like that. The purpose of the step system is to move along new hires. You get to the top and then it's the increase to the base that affects your salary. So the original comment about after 16 years through master's 30, I don't know what that is. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that the negotiation was a thoughtful process. We went through the increase to the base, but then we also dealt with the healthcare. It's all kind of kit and caboodle. And if it wasn't to pass, if this contract wasn't to pass, then that healthcare savings doesn't pass either. It's not one or the other. So it's something to consider as you think about the whole package. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think it's Rita, but iPad. If you want
to Dave.
Well, Dave is okay. Is Dave coming back? So the hand went down. Dave, do you want to? Okay, your hand's back up. So sorry for that confusion. Mr. Feller, you can unmute and go, and then we'll turn it to iPad.
Okay, thank you very much. First, thank you, Rob, for the presentation, and thank all the members of the committee for all your time and personal effort that you put into this. So the numbers I computed from the slide that was on the screen a little bit ago was 25% on the salary line for 3 years, 17.5% on the net pay increase. So I think Mr. Tewksbury does have those numbers ballpark correct. But I want to go into a couple other things I didn't understand in the schedule that showed where contract changes were coming from. You had negative $97,000 for health insurance, where you also said that health insurance increased by 5.9%. So can you tell me exactly what the 5.9% increase relates to a reduction of $97,000?
I can try. So the 5% increase, yes, health insurance costs are going up, but the changes that people make in the elimination of the one position, the assistant BA, creates the downtrend in the health insurance costs. So we have an increase in the cost that we pay, but we have a decrease in the amount of healthcare that we're buying. The $97,000 savings, I think that was the number, on the contract, is if the contract passes, the operating budget is separate from the contract. So the operating budget is a function of the people we currently know that we employ and what it would look like next year if we employ them again. So as Mr. Zipke noted, if the contract doesn't pass, that $97,000 in savings does not exist.
Okay, so does that means that the increase in the health insurance is in the regular operating budget, and the savings from the increase in the co-pays are included in the contract number?
That is correct.
Okay, so let's go to dental insurance. So dental insurance went up by 5%. And what percent do the employees pay for dental?
They don't pay any. It's 100% coverage.
So how could there be a savings in the contract if they don't pay anything?
Yes. Can you say that again?
How could there be a savings of $46,000 if they're not paying anything?
Oh, in the contract?
Yeah.
Because we got a different plan at a lower cost.
So if we don't approve the contract, we're going to go back to the old dental plan?
You got it. Well, we're not going to go back. It's in the contract and that contract will still be in force. But yes,
So, but the contract doesn't describe the actual dental plan that has to be in force.
yes, it does.
Okay, I missed that then because I have it in front of me and I can't see that, but okay, I get that. So just tell me what percentage of the premiums do the employees pay for life insurance?
That is a contractual benefit. I don't believe they pay anything for their life insurance.
What about long-term disability?
That's a question that I couldn't answer. I'm getting a nod that they don't. That's part of their benefit.
Okay, and the retirement plan, the 403B, does the district contribute to that?
So when you're initially hired, there's a one-time offer in your first year of $500 to open a 403B if you don't have one. That was created a number of years ago to incentivize people and to make them aware that they ought to be saving some money. But after that, there's just what people choose to contribite.
Okay, good plan. So the summer rate of $40, that was 33, that's a 21% increase. Is that what you recall?
32 to 40 was the number, yes.
Okay, and also the early retirement, the ranges that increased by about 4 to 5% also.
It increased by $2,000 per year from age 55 to 59. I don't know the percentages, Dave. I was a social studies guy, not a math guy.
Okay. And on the health insurance, you have in your schedule here the HRA, HSA contribution, and they change. Are they the same rates as they were in the previous contract?
Yes, I believe they are the same for the HRA, yes. The HSA had to be created because it didn't exist. It only exists in a high deductible plan.
Okay, so the HSA is only for the high deductible.
Correct. That's a legal thing. That's not us. So yes.
Okay. All right. So I mean, I just in the health insurance, everybody knows my feelings on this, and if we keep paying the major portions of the health insurance premium and the deductibles and everything, nothing's really going to change with our with our loss ratio, and insurance premiums will continue to increase. And until we make a major change, we shouldn't expect the behavior to change, and that's really what's going to change the cost over the long term. I have one other question on time off, and hopefully you can explain this. Because as I understand, you can accumulate 160 days of time off, sick time off.
That's correct.
And I don't understand the way what is the income protection? And how does that affect your accumulated time off? And have we considered just going to a short-term disability plan?
I didn't really understand the first part of the question.
Okay.
I should say,
so the way I understand it, you can accumulate up to 160 days. So I can get a major sickness. I can be paid in full for 160 days. But then there's a section in the contract that talks about income protection that says I can be paid for 90 days, and then for another 90 days, get 2/3 of my pay. And then there's another section that talks about the long-term disability program that has a whole different pay scale. And I can't figure out how they all work together.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Dave. I wouldn't be able to figure it out either. That would be the job of the business administrator to figure that stuff out and where it lies. I can tell you in practice, the 160 days think I was there for 20, I'm just going to speak my personal experience. I had 160 days when I left. You accumulate them, most folks are not going to use them. And I think when some folks use them, they're not really sick. They might be having a child, which is not, that's not a sick day. That's maternity leave. So I understand what you're saying in how that works with long-term disability, but I'm not the person to answer those questions in detail. I'm going to leave that to our business administrators to work out. And we can certainly,
I just think
can
that,
certainly have that conversation with you.
I just think that going down the road, and it's too late in the game now, but there's a lot of money tied up in accumulated sick time, and sick banks and everything that could possibly be reduced by
If
having
I
a
may.
short-term disability.
Sorry, I'm gonna quickly, Rob. Mr. Feller, so I should have stated this at the start of public comment, and my apologies for that. We are going to try to provide each speaker with about 3 minutes so that we can give fair and equitable opportunity for everyone who wants to make public comment. I did not initiate sort of a timer here, so I'm just going to courtesy sort of ask you. I do believe we've exceeded that, but that's okay. But if we could maybe if you have one or two more questions, and then we'll try to give additional opportunity.
I have used more than my time, so thank you, and I appreciate your time.
That's okay.
All right. I just want to follow up on the sick. This came up a couple of weeks ago as well. Teachers do accumulate those sick days, but if they use them, there's obviously a cost because you have to, hire a substitute and whatnot. But there is no payment for sick days when you leave, zero. So the only cost is that you provided your employee with the to be sick. If that's an opportunity, that's the benefit. We recognize that, and we're not going to dock your pay for it. But there is no cost to the district by them accumulating unless they're used as they would be used appropriately by anybody who's ill.
I also just want to make a follow-up comment quickly on this. So speaking personally, I grew up in a family that struggled to have adequate healthcare coverage. And my parents often prioritized my getting to see the doctor when it was necessary. And, for a variety of reasons that I won't go into too personally here, I think the lack of really taking advantage of preventative medical care ultimately resulted in my mom being diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. So as we consider health insurance and use of it, I personally am very cautious. The outcome, the goal of health insurance is not always to spend the least possible amount and drive people away from seeing their doctors the most we possibly can. There is a balance, of course, between the amount of money we're spending, especially taxpayer money, and providing people with adequate medical coverage that they're not scared to take themselves or their sick kids to the doctor. I'm not implying that you were saying that, Mr. Feller. I just wanted to share that kind of personal comment because it's just sort of an important point to me personally. Okay. Rita, I think that's you. Sorry if it's not, but iPad.
It is,
If
sorry.
you want to go
This is
unmute. Yep.
11 Barton Corner Road. I just want to add my little personal story before my minutes. I retired before 65, so I still don't have Medicare. No one's paying for my health care but me. Obamacare is through the roof. Normal citizen can't afford it. So everybody has a story. I'd like to thank Ian and Mr. Feller for breaking down a little bit of this contract. I am vehemently opposed to a yes vote on the contract. I also think we need a hiring freeze. And probably, I just don't understand this budget. Regarding the slide showing it 202,000, 202, $70,000 for the BA. I'm guessing that was Michelle's salary and benefits. We had a full year with 2 full-time BAs. I've spoke to several different SAUs, not all of them single town. And I actually talked to somebody down at Quincy College. No one believed we had somebody on payroll for a year. Last year we were told, what was it? We weren't gonna hire a third grade teacher or something. And sounded all pretty. But what we did in reality was move a teacher down to third grade and hire a teacher for a different grade. That's what we seem to be doing with our savings of people moving on, retiring. Last year we desperately needed a curriculum director. Well, this year we don't, so now she's gone. My understanding, we're gonna hire a special ed director. So again, no savings. I agree with the contract. In my professional field, I went several years with no raise, no step raise, no cost of living raise, no anything. And that contract looks egregious to me. I had like the president of the Iron Workers Union here the other day. And we went over. He wishes he could do that for his employees. I just really hope this budget committee looks at that union contract. I'm not gonna be redundant and repeat what Ian and Dave said. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita.
I just want to make one note. There's a reference to healthcare and the affordability of healthcare through the Affordable Care Act. And I also am not 65 and do not get Medicare yet. So my wife and I now get our healthcare through the Affordable Care Act. And the cost to me is, I'll just say it, is $840 a month. If I were to purchase my insurance through the school district, it would have been at least double that. So the Affordable Care Act is actually quite affordable. You get to pick your plan, and it does help people. Like without that, I'm not so sure I would have retired when I did. So thank you, Mr. Obama.
Okay, so we're going, yeah, that's okay. Come on up to the mic. I'm just going to acknowledge that to the person whose hand is raised, we're going to get to you next. So we'll do in-person comment and then Zoom.
Hi, Suzanne Carmichael at 845 Clement Hill Road. I just have a clarifying question. It looks like with the new contract negotiation, can you tell me a little bit more about like the high deductible plan that you're also offering or the lower cost plans? I was just looking for a little more.
Sure. So the lower cost plan would bring us considerably more savings. That's why the percentage cost share was less. When we did the calculations, we did that with an understanding or projection that 5 people might move over to that plan. The high deductible plan brings us considerably more savings than the SOS 25. However, we did not project anyone necessarily moving over to that plan because, you know, that would not have been, I think the Department of Revenue Administration would be a little upset with us if we did that. But for certain individuals who are young and relatively healthy and don't go to the doctor very often, that might be a very good choice for them as their cost shares will fall. So if that does come to pass, there'll be even more savings that we weren't able to build into this presentation.
Speaking from experience as a district, I work at a neighboring district, that we did shift. It took us 2 contract cycles to go through and eventually kind of shift people because it is a big adjustment. The responsibility definitely falls on the teachers. But high deductible plans are sort of where districts are moving. And I think I read someplace that there's a plan potentially to bring some people in to educate teachers about the cost savings. And I think if you do that, there might be more people willing to take the jump because there is a big adjustment with that. You know, I went from $5 copays to a $5,000 deductible, and that was tough to swallow, but it took us 2 contract cycles to get everybody shifted over.
Yeah, I think part of our plan is that if the contract does pass, then the Human Resources Department will meet with individuals and will also bring in the folks from Health Trust to explain the differences so people understand the risks that they are assuming, and whether or not it makes sense for them in their particular situation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry, I forget the name of the person, but Mom, you can go ahead and unmute.
Hi, I'm Amelia Feudner. I actually didn't state my address last time, but it's 277 Pinewood Drive. So I just have a couple of questions and a few things to say. I'm relatively new to joining town meetings. I've actually lived here my whole life, but we recently just bought a house and our kids are just recently starting school. So bear with me as I ask these questions, please. I guess the first question that I have is on the contract, the 3-year contract that the teachers are going to be signing. Where would we vote? Well, is that would we vote that down in the town meeting? And if so, when do we vote on if they were to change their contract? Or is that not even part of our?
Yeah, so the teacher's contract will be voted on at the school district meeting. It needs a simple majority to pass. If it is to pass, then it goes into play. If it fails, then we would need to decide whether or not to reopen negotiations immediately and call a special meeting, or whether or not we would wait until the following, till school district meeting of 26, 27.
Okay, the reasoning why is because I think with the way that everything's going recently, I think a 1-year contract would be a better way to go until we can get a handle on everything going on. Another thing that I wanted to state with the contract and the raises for the teachers is that an average raise per I guess general worker at a company would be 3%. That's kind of what the average is. That's what my husband gets at his corporate job. So why are we giving higher raises to teachers when in the state of New Hampshire, our teachers are paid extremely well to begin with? I know we have great system and the education is great, and I appreciate that, but we're already paying them a lot. So why are we giving them higher increases? Including the cost for dental. You're saying that it's covered completely, which is not how the normal health insurance goes. So we have to pay for our dental and eye coverage. Why can't we put a payment towards the teachers on that? You're saying that you saved us money because you were able to get a better plan. Well, couldn't you save us more money if you charged them $3-4 even per paycheck for their dental and eye care? That's not an extreme amount, but that is something that's gonna increase the savings. And I know that I forgot, I don't know, I can't actually see who is talking at the time. So someone had mentioned about the lack of healthcare as they were growing up. We as taxpayers have to pay for healthcare. We do care about our teachers, but we have to afford our healthcare also. So why are we, saying things about how your healthcare as a child was not very good? It doesn't, you're not really making sense in the sense that we also have to pay for healthcare. And a lot of the times we don't make our deductibles at $5,000. So, and our copays are astronomical also. So you're kind of just like playing words to make other people feel bad, but we have to remember that we're paying taxes, but we also have to pay for our healthcare and our s- e- expenses in general. So
Sure. Hey Rob, I'm just gonna address that quickly. Yeah, so that was me, who made that comment. Krista Skura, budget chair. And I guess my point personally was that it is my personal belief that healthcare is more or less a human right, and that we should just be wary of putting in policies that make people adverse to using their healthcare. As a point of compassion. So that would be broadly speaking, I would hope that like my goal personally would be for every human to have healthcare that they feel that it's okay to use. So it wasn't to say to pit anyone against anyone else. It is just that unfortunately we do have the taxpayers, fortunately or unfortunately, this committee is responsible for reviewing the contract of the teachers. Or at least passing it, recommending it to the taxpayers to vote up or down, and not anyone else's healthcare. So I am very empathetic to your situation.
I mean,
As
I
well.
understand what you're saying, but you have to think about all of the people that are paying the taxes versus the amount of teachers that we have. And we have to think about the amount of people that are paying the taxes and having to pay these increases versus the teachers that are already higher paid than other teachers in the state, having to pay a little bit more for their health care, specifically free dental, which is kind of mind-boggling to me. Like I don't think I've ever had an insurance company pay for my dental and eye care completely. It's usually like $2 or $3. So I guess my
Understand.
question for that would be, where would I present that?
I think, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think that I would ask you if you have another question, if we could move along. We were at time a few minutes ago, but I don't like to cut people off. So feel free if you have another question. I just want to do a little bit of a time check.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just, like I said, the last thing I said was just where would I present these ideas going forward?
This is a great forum, but even better than that, I think if you wanted to attend the school board meetings, that is the best and most appropriate forum to share that feedback.
Okay, so next Wednesday is the school board. Is that no, that's the school budget, right? So you're saying
So
the school board
the
meeting?
school, like the school-wide annual meeting is March 8th, thank you, at 9 a.m. At the high school. But the regular school board meetings are, I don't know when the next one is. Next Tuesday, thank you. And that's like part of the regular cadence, and I think it's on their website.
So moving forward, these suggestions would be at the school board, the regular school board meetings.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Krista?
Yes.
By my count, at least 3, perhaps 4 people have told us to vote down the teacher's contract. I was just wondering for clarity, could you explain what the effects of that would be? Because if we vote down the new contract, and this happened during the COVID drive-in thing, it reverts to the old contract.
That's correct.
And could you just for clarity, tell folks what would happen?
Sure. Can I come back to that and unpack? Oh, I use that word. I don't like that word. Respond to Amelia's things first, because I think there's a lot there. So as I think I previously stated, every negotiation is incremental. It builds on the last negotiation, so on and so forth. And this particular negotiation for the school district, the goal was increasing the cost share for health insurance. The dental insurance is fairly standard in the state for dental to be covered by school districts. That's not an anomaly in most places. So again, that is the reason for the 4.75% in that first year. 3.75 in the succeeding years, part of what we're looking at is then how does our pay scale compare to other districts? And we can only use real-time scales. To be clear, Concord pays their teachers significantly more than we do. At the high end, it's almost $10,000. We are just about on par with Bow, and we are a little bit above Kearsarge and John Stark. Why is that important? Because it is an incredibly competitive environment for teachers. To get quality candidates to your school, part of what you are doing is offering them a salaries and benefits package that's going to bring them to you. I don't know why I ended up coming across this information. Maybe it's the wonderful world of social media, but I stumbled onto an advertisement for Pinkerton Academy, which in February is seeking to fill 6 to 8 teaching positions, 6 to 8 in February. So if you don't think that there's a critical shortage of people that want to enter education, that should speak volumes to you. So how do we continue to attract folks? We do it through a competitive contract with competitive wages and a competitive benefits package. That's part of what we must do. And I understand and that it can be difficult, but we can't always compare every industry to every other industry. I hope that answers your question. I'm really excited that you called in, Amelia, and I love the civic engagement. So thank you. To Rich's question, what happens?
Would we save money or would it cost us money if we voted down this contract?
So that's a great question. People that are on step and track would continue to get those step and track changes. People that are at the top of the scale would not, so they would see no increase because there's no place to move them. In terms of whether or not we would save money, all of those health savings would go out the window. So we would lose money. So that $93,000 in savings could potentially, I would think, become a $93,000 expense as we move forward. Part of that is a function of what people choose. Now you've limited choices for healthcare, so might people move to the SOS 25, save a little money out of their own paycheck, save us some money? Might they move to a higher deductible plan? All of those potential savings are going to be mitigated. And I think Ms. Taylor is coming to the mic to save me, so thank you.
To answer your question, Rich, so the operating budget that we proposed is if the HEA contract fails. So everything stays the same. So teachers do not get a step. They stay at the exact same step that they're on right now. We are required to still, if they change track, so if they get a master's degree and they've let us know in time, then we are required to still change their track, but they don't get a step increase. The health insurance is that 5.9 that is contracted. We still have to provide that for them, but we can't introduce the new plan. So we can't introduce the open access high deductible plan or the higher deductible SOS 25 to try to save any savings. Does that help?
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Do you want to? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Lippy, we're going to let Amanda go quickly and then we'll come to you. So Amanda, do you want to unmute?
Thank you. This is Amanda Gilman, 168 Westridge Circle. I am very much against the amount of the increase in the percentage increase in this teacher's contract. I do think that we need an increase, but the 4.75 is exorbitant, well above cost of living. Even if you consider the healthcare savings, I understand that. And to Mr. NATO's point about comparing salaries to other districts, I think that's not necessarily apples to apples because you also have to compare the environment and the class sizes. I will look it up and maybe I would encourage you all to, but I'm pretty sure Kearsarge doesn't have a class size minimum policy of 15. And I don't believe we have a class size minimum at the high school. So because of the needs of the high school, some of our several classes at the high school, and Mr. Nato could probably speak to this, are significantly smaller than 15 even. So the environment that we teach in or our teachers teach in Hopkinton, I think is a great environment. The administration has done a great job to foster that. And I think that we are a desirable community to teach in with a socioeconomic base that supports our teachers. And to put us at the top of the pay scale of our peers, as Mr. Nato said, I think is a lofty goal and an unnecessary goal because I think there's enough other draws to Hopkinton where you could come in with a modest size increase or even perhaps slightly more than the 2.5. I get that, but 4.75 is exorbitant and it's crippling to the taxpayers. And I'm frustrated that the negotiations actually led to this, to put the budget committee into this position to make this decision. It shouldn't have even gotten this far because it's actually unfair to everyone. And I get the teachers, perhaps it's not unfair to them, but to the rest of us paying the bill and to the budget committee putting the decision to whether to support this or not, I think was a poor choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Go ahead.
Can I speak to that a little bit?
Yes.
So yeah, Hopkinton is an attractive place to work. I wouldn't deny that. I wouldn't have spent 22 years someplace that wasn't enjoyable to work at. I did not say we need to be at the top of the pay scale. I was simply stating what other districts are and that we are competitive with them. I don't expect us to be at the same rate as Concord. In terms of the class size scenario, you know, I've said this year before, to be clear, we are a very small school, which means we run a program. And for kids to get all of the courses that they need to acquire the 24 credits or 20 credits, then sometimes classes run that are smaller than normal. The norm, I'll just speak for myself, was somewhere between, I'd say 20 to 26 would have been a normal class size. Were there times when it was less than that? Yes. But if you're in a small grade at the middle high school, you still get to take an elective course, even though, you know, you've got a class of 60, you should still be able to take psychology or AP Psych, etc. If we're going to compare ourselves to other districts, let's also remind ourselves that in a small shop like we are, you also have a lot of preparations. When I left Hollis Brookline High School, it was in our contract that the most preparations you could have in any given semester was 3. That means you were teaching 3 different courses. When I was at the middle high school, I taught 5, and that was a norm. And it is not uncommon for teachers in our school to have 3, 4, and 5 preps. So yeah, you know, I remember getting together with folks at Concord High in their social studies department to talk about some history, how they ran their U.S. history courses and how we ran ours. And you know, teaching 5 sections of freshman history would not be exciting to me at all. So you know, there are trade-offs everywhere. That's it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks, Scott Zipke, Westridge Circle. A couple things. One, to address the discussion of cost of living increases. I just looked up the Social Security cost of living increases over the last 4 years. Total is over 20%. So I don't know what the apples to apples comparison is, but there are different ways to look at everything, just like cost of living increases. I also want to address Mr. Houston's comment about the number of people that have spoken negatively about the contract. I don't know how budget committee members make their decision, how to vote up or to vote down. If it's a straw poll about how many people come to the mic and make a comment, I'm all for it. Like, let's start making comments for the contract. I get worried that there's a very vocal minority that tends to lead the discussion in town. and it's not actually how the town feels. So I don't know. I mean, that was an honest question, Rich. I don't know how you guys decide. Hopefully it's on the merits of what was negotiated in a fair and reasonable manner. And not just, I got 4 people who spoke up tonight and said, don't vote for the contract, and 2 people that said, do vote for the contract. I don't know.
That wasn't my intention to make.
Yeah, I didn't actually think that, but I was just bringing it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Sarah Baruti, 371 Maple Street. As a taxpayer and also a teacher here, having taught for 20 years, 7 in this district, I fully support this budget, and I hope that you guys agree to pass it as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Suzanne Carmichael again, 845 Clement Hill Road. Just to give it some context, because I am a contract negotiator in another district. We anticipate 2-year contract with 6% and 6% increases, no change to insurance, and our district covers 100% of our premium. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're up against. This is the first time in my 25-year teaching career that it's a teacher's market. It used to be that teachers who are expensive with 10+ years of experience with a master's degree were not going anywhere. That is absolutely not the case. It used to be maybe that math and science teachers were the ones that could move around a little bit once they got expensive. There is a shortage in every single subject. For example, 25 years master's plus, I was offered a job in a district with it was a commute, almost $20,000 difference. It was not the time for me to move. But that is certainly what we are up against. I recognize, would I have maybe asked for a 2-year contract potentially, based on some things that, yes, but what they are asking for is in line. You see schools like Hillsborough asking for smaller increases, like a smaller 2%. Hillsborough, when I was growing up, Hillsborough was the district you did not want to end up in. Hillsborough is now one of the highest paid in the state. And so when they asked for 2%, they saw the writing on the wall and said, okay, we're higher. We're up there with Concord, right? Which is an autonomous district. Their board makes all of their decisions. Their voters do not. But when you are 10 minutes away from Concord High, when you are 15 minutes from John Stark, Kearsarge, some of these other places, it's very easy to make the jump. And I would say, looking at the demographics of Hopkinton, there are a lot of people who are looking to retire in the next couple of years. I would say 6 years, and we can look at, okay, let's get in some of those younger people who are more, less expensive. But I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot by getting people who have been there 10, 20 years and lose that kind of historical knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Krista? Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, Debbie, go ahead.
I just feel that there was a question put to us, Mr. Zipke, and I just wanted to say that I, for one, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know the quality of the budget committee members. I approach each season with an open mind, listen to the priorities of what's needed, and try to go from there and balance.
Thank you, Debbie. I think it's well stated. It's Amelia, right? That's mom. I'm pretty sure it's Amelia.
Amanda.
Amanda. No,
maybe.
I think it's Amelia.
It's Amelia.
So
yeah.
you can go ahead and unmute. Yeah.
I'll figure out how to change the mom thing eventually. Sorry. I just wanted to touch on what Mr. Zipke said. And overall, the people that are able to attend this meeting tonight, out of the 5 people that I messaged to join this meeting, one of them was able to join. And that speaks a lot about the fact that us parents, my husband had to put all 3 of our kids to bed tonight because I was joined in on this meeting, and I'm here on Zoom. I couldn't be there in person. and you know, 4 of the friends that I messaged that have kids in the school, they aren't able to make the meeting at all. Either they're home by themselves without without a parent or a secondary parent who may be working or whatnot. But excuse me. The thing is I understand there's a lot of people stepping up right now saying that the contract, we don't want to vote on this contract. And there are people that are supporting the contract. I just want to be clear that it's not that I'm not supporting the contract itself. It's that I think there needs to be a smaller contract put forward until we can figure out more of what's going on. So instead of a 3-year contract, a 1-year contract, and with that 1-year contract, a lower raise, and so to speak. I mean, my son's in 1st grade and he has had 2 amazing teachers. I love the teachers in the school. I'm very grateful for them. I grew up in this school and I'm grateful for the teachers that taught me. So I don't want anyone to think that I don't think the teachers deserve what they are deserving. I just, as a taxpayer, it's very hard to stay in the school system with our taxes continuously going up. And the school budget is the target essentially because of how much it does increase our taxes. If you look at all the other rates, the school budget is really the biggest one. So that's all I wanted to say, though.
Put it this is. You hear on every other Facebook group of every town, Henniker, Hillsborough, it's the same challenge everywhere. No one wants to see taxes go up, but this seems fairly prudent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we back on Zoom yet?
We are on Zoom.
We are?
Nice.
Okay. Then I'm just gonna state for anyone online, we did lose internet momentarily. The committee took a 5 to 7 minute bathroom break to try to deal with that. And so now we are back and we are still doing public comment on the school district operating budget and warrant articles. So as soon as I can see if there are any hands raised, I will go back to online comment. Is anyone else, does anyone else here want to come to the mic and speak?
20 people.
Okay, great. Hopefully they heard that. Yeah.
Dave Lambert, 305 Galloping Hill. So just a couple of, I guess, questions. I've been to all the meetings, so and I want to say I am happy that came back with a little bit higher budget cut than was asked. But I do have a question. So in part of that budget savings, it was determined that there was already 3 budgeted IA positions that couldn't be filled. So you felt that you could probably do away with the extra 2 out of the budget because there already were 3 available positions you're still trying to fill that we're having a hard time filling. But I think you showed a slide earlier saying that you've included in the budget the 2 IA positions. You're not asking for extra money, but you are hiring 2 more. So does that mean there was an extra 100,000 in there that just magically appeared? That was kind of weird. And I know at one of the school board meetings, it was mentioned that because the board was kind of all anxious about it, it was kind of mentioned, don't worry, we'll still be able to hire them. So it sounds like there was money still packed in there. Now we were sold on the fact that the curriculum director, and don't get mad at me, Rob, I'm not going to get into a personnel issue here, but we were told that we're saving money because we did away with that position, yet we didn't do away with the person. So there's still a salary going out there. We're just kind of being sold that there's this big savings when there's technically not. And then going back to the budgets, and we were talking about different districts. Now I am a teacher. in a much larger district, about a half hour south of here. I should probably get hazard pay there but I don't. Because we do have 2 or 3 full-time, full uniform officers in the building and people are still getting stabbed, but that's a different point. I do pay into medical. I mean, I do pay into I do pay into dental. That's not covered. I don't take medical because my spouse has it. But there's no compensation for that. So right there, Hopkinton teachers are getting a pretty good deal getting those things covered because I don't. So that it was kind of sold on this side that that's pretty much the norm. It's not everywhere. So, all right, thanks.
Thank you. Do you want to address the?
So in terms of the 2 IA positions that were previously requested that we didn't request. So when we initially had done that, what we were not aware of was a person who has decided to retire, not through our early retirement system. So that person is leaving, more experienced, more expensive. And there's also some discussion of some consolidation within that department. So with that retirement and that consolidation, that will pay for those 2 additional IAs. That's not information that we had when we were working through that part of the budget previously. As for the curriculum coordinator position, as was discussed in a number of school board meetings, that is more of a situation where we felt there was a greater need in special ed than there is currently at the curriculum coordinator role. So that's what we have been discussing. Yes. Yeah. And that's part of that, heavy load at the Harold Martin School. I hope that's got it all, Dave.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone else approaching the mic. Okay, yes, I do. Just a friendly reminder, if you're on Zoom and you want to speak, please raise your hand. Go ahead.
Elizabeth Sides, 265 Crowell Road. I am in support of the budget and all the contracts. I paid attention to a lot of the meetings during all the budget season and listened to all the questions asked. I've asked questions. And I think these were really thoughtful decisions that the board came up with. And even though at the time I didn't love the idea of reducing even more after the budget committee asked them to, I trust Rob, I trust the school board, I trust Mike Flynn. And if they think that that was a good idea to reduce by 358. So I support that. I support our teachers. We live in a really, really special community that is unique. At least I think it's unique. There are a lot of people that don't have the amazing teachers. And I know a lot of them have gone, so I'm sorry that I didn't talk earlier, that don't get to experience Hopkinton teachers. I'm so grateful. My husband and I are so grateful that we're here. Our children usually cry every year that they leave their teachers. That is unique. That is not something that happens everywhere. You pay for what you get, and we have wonderful staff here. We have great principals. We have a great superintendent. We have great teachers. I hope it stays that way. I volunteer a lot in Harold Martin, and our youngest, we have a child in every school this year, and next year she's going to move to Maple Street. So we'll have 2 at middle high school and 1 at Maple. I'm still going to volunteer at Harold Martin because I love it there. And I'm not going to have a kid there. The staff is amazing. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. They care about the kids. They educate them. They teach them about social skills, about empathy, working on their behavior, kindness, everything that teachers, they're asked to do a lot and they do more. So I am in favor of paying them what they should get, which is, I think, what this contract supports. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Sarah Matson Dustin, 517 Dustin Road. I am in support of the teacher's contract as well. And we've heard a lot tonight about the theme that pay is very high. I just want to ground us in the fact that a starting salary of $44,000 is considerably short of being a living wage anywhere in New Hampshire. And if you doubled it, you would still be far short of what the median household income is in this town. So I would just like to remind us all that these are not high-paying jobs. I also want to change course and talk about the maintenance trust. I think that the school board and the budget committee did a nice job of balancing our maintenance needs with the question of affordability for the taxpayers. But I am a broken record on this point. We are not putting enough into the maintenance trust. I think that is clear to everyone. And 5 years from now, when people are angry about the fact that not enough money has been set aside for maintenance, I think it's important for it to be on the record that we are making that decision because of affordability. Everybody knows that more needs to go in that. So we are doing this to ourselves. Thank you. Thank you.
Trish Lambert, 305 Galloping Hill Road. Oh, I see the face. So I'm just going to bring up the point again. Tomorrow's governor's budget. End of June will be another legislative session done, which I know we've talked a lot about the money that goes to the school. I think we all know what's going on at the federal level. There's a lot of stuff going on. I agree with Ian. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I agree with Ian. What he said up here is absolutely true. And I think it should be a one-year budget. I think it should be it should be no raises because they're going to get them anyway in their steps. I would just probably remind people just because if this goes through and they get those raises, 4.75, 3.75, and then the other 3.75, if there's no money to pay for it, that means cuts. So somebody's going to lose jobs. It doesn't mean that you have to keep the entire workforce working in that school. So I would encourage everybody to think about your neighbor and that even the teachers, that if that happens and it does fall out and you don't have those funds that come in one way or the other, I'm just saying, if the money's not there, you're going to have to cut people. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I do not see anyone at the mic or with a hand raised online. So with that, I will close public comment on the school district operating budget and warrant articles. Thank you to everyone for the active discussion. I actually wanted to do this before break, but I'm just going to pause. And before we turn to Dawn for the Kentucky Village Precinct presentation, I want to recognize our three members of the committee, and I'm pretty sure that that is correct, who will not, for whom this is their last year. So that is Debbie, Mark, and Ken on the committee. That's right? I didn't forget anybody. Okay. I just want to say like a very short couple words. So Debbie, you've been vice chair this year and I've really appreciated you by my metaphorical side. You bring compassion, thoughtfulness, and leadership to this committee and you will definitely be missed. Ken, you always have a steady hand on what is going on in the town and are more than happy to field any question this committee has asked. So you will also be missed and thank you. And Mark, obviously you have served as committee chair, and I would like to personally say that those are like kind of big shoes to fill following in your legacy. And so thank you for setting a great example and serving this community for many years. So all right. I want to do that while there's still people here to clap. All right, so Dawn, over to you for the Kentucky Village Precinct.
Thank you. The Kentucky Village Precinct serves 600 customers in Kentucky. The rest of you will have to just listen to this because you're here. The precinct basically supplies fire hydrant and fire protection to the businesses and homes in Kentucky, and also does streetlights. And again, we get about 600 customers that we serve. The Kentucky Village Precinct continues to deal with assessing the status of the system, the ongoing upgrade needs, and the long-term needs for the next 12 years. Currently, the certified contract operator, Penachuk, is working through a lengthy list of necessary repairs and upgrades at the treatment plant on Boundary Road. Krista probably knows about that area a little better than most people. The initial tank and filtration were built in 1992. And while the equipment has been maintained at proper standards, many of the components are now need to be replaced and are no longer in manufacture. The treatment system manufacturer no longer manufactures or supports the systems that we have. Therefore, integrating newly sourced components with the old ones is a real challenge that we're having great difficulty doing. The goal is to continue to repair and upgrade the system to meet all state standards of quality guidelines for the next 10 years. At that point, a new facility will need to be researched, designed, and constructed. To fund the ongoing needs and to provide the long-term financial needs for the new facility in 2035, a financial plan was developed. To provide the revenues needed to meet that plan, a rate study was contracted. The resulting recommendation is to increase both the water rate and the tax rate by 8.2% a year. This plan will provide the necessary funds to address the infrastructure needs, filter replacements, main replacements, and the Boundary water treatment plant itself in 2035. The current proposed plan is to spend approximately $8,500,000 through physical next 10 or 12 years to address all of these infrastructure needs. The most over budget expenditures in 2024 were repairs and maintenance at the Boundary plant. These were budgeted for $20,000 and we spent over $126,000. As the contract operator started operating the system, they found many items that needed to replace and upgraded. Going into their second year dealing with the Boundary plant, they have projected an additional $85,000 needs to be budgeted. We also have budgeted $75,000 for possible replacement of meters that no longer reading properly. We have over 100 meters that are not being read properly, and those folks are being averaged out, and we're not getting the revenue that we should from that part of the system. With all this work that's being done, the commissioners are confident that our customers continue to receive high quality and safe water. The quarterly notice of deficiency that we have been mailing has to do with a product of disinfecting the raw water, which occurs when chlorine combines with a natural organic material in the Bear Pond water. While not an emergency, nor harmful in the short term, it needs to be fixed and is being worked on, and that work will be continued through this next year. As stated earlier, the rate study recommended raising the rates. The current rate is $4.50 per 1,000 gallons by the 8.2%, and the tax rate is the same. Because of the problem of customers receiving estimated billing, which is lower than the actual revenue that should be billed is unknown. The commissioners want to wait till we fully resolve that metering problem before we decide what the rate increase for the water usage will be. Regarding the recommendation to raise the tax rate 8.2%, the commissioners have proposed to increase it 9%. This is a $33,000 increase over what DRA adjusted our taxes to be raised this last year, and as an average of basically around $56 per customer. The rate study also recommends the precinct lower the amount budgeted for the capital improvement fund and direct those funds to the operating budget. The proposed budget reduces the capital reserve allocation that we've been doing for probably the last 6 or 7 years of $250,000 down to $85,000. The revised federal lead and copper rule dictates that all service lines, materials in the customer homes and businesses must be identified and documented. And if either the lead or service or it's unknown, the entire service must be replaced. To address this, the precinct will offer a warrant at the annual meeting to raise approximately $1,800,000 for the purpose of all the work needed to plan, engineer, coordinate, and identify the material of every service line in the system. In practical terms, this may mean excavating a hole at the curb stop, which is beside the street, at each of the 587 customers that have service connections. If any lead services are identified, funds are also included in this for replacement on a limited number of these that we expect. Based on what records are available, we do not anticipate many of lead services. Fortunately, the precinct will receive up to 71% principal forgiveness from the state revolving fund loan program, which we've talked about here quite a bit. Hopefully it sticks. If all funds were used, the precinct would expend about $510,000. None of these expenses will affect the 2025 budget. A bond hearing on this warrant is scheduled for 6 p.m. this coming February 24th at the Slusser Center. In summary, this feels like a roller coaster ride. Because of the water usage has been lower than budgeted, the shortfall of $86,000 was made up by DRA's adjustment with an increase on taxation this past billing. These adjusted amounts are used in developing and comparing with the 2025 budget. With that said, the operating budget is going to go up $283,000. The special warrant articles for the capital reserve fund are going down $165,000. Total appropriations up $118,000, and revenues are up $85,000. That amount to be raised by taxes is up $33,000 or 9%. The adjusted tax rate by the Department of Revenue Administration for 2024 for the precinct is $1.24 per thousand of assessment. This proposed budget increase of 11 cents per thousand takes it up to $1.35 per thousand, or basically back to the 9% increase. Our annual meeting is tentatively set for 6 p.m. March 24th, at the Slusser Center. Any questions?
So that's official opening of public comment to the Kentucky Village Precinct presentation. Thank you, Don.
Well, Matteo, you don't have a question?
Can you show the attendees to see if anyone's raising their hand, Neil?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Oh, it is.
Lauren Clement, 86 Maple Street. Just a quick question. What was the date of the annual meeting?
The 24th of March.
March 24th. At what time?
6 o'clock.
6 at the Slusher Center, you said.
It'll be posted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone approaching the mic, and I don't see anyone with their hand raised. So with that, we will close public comment on the Kentucky Village Precinct presentation. Thank you again, Mr. Houston. And we will start, we'll send it over to Vicky for the Hopkinton Village Precinct operating budget and warrant articles presentation.
Thank you. Our budget is pretty simple this year. There are no bonds. There are no other warrant articles besides the general municipal operations. I'm sorry, I should say I'm Vicky. I'm here representing the Hopkinton Village Precinct and the Hopkinton Village Water Board. And our annual meeting is here on Thursday, March 27th at 7:30. And by here, I mean town hall for posterity. I read this out last year and I thought it was helpful because some people are unsure about the reason why the precincts exist, especially considering the Hopkinton one is somewhat separate from the water district. The water district has about 90 houses. The precinct has 220. So I just wanted to read this out loud to you, if you don't mind. This is the vision statement for the precinct of Hopkinton. The residents of the village enjoy the benefits of a traditional New Hampshire village neighborhood with historic homes, churches, public buildings, and a local elementary school and businesses. The village enjoys undeveloped land and clean water.
The village's boards, recognizing the interests of the region and the state as well as the village, should focus on the retention of the primarily residential nature of the village, preservation of the village's historic architectural heritage, expansion of the village's walkability, and protection of its open spaces, aquifer, and natural environment. So a lot of people ask me, what do I get as a member, as a taxpayer of the precinct? So the short answer is streetlights, but then also the deeper, more holistic answer is historic preservation. So this year, oh, I should also mention that the Hopkinton Water Board meets the third Monday of each month here at Town Hall at 6:30. And the Hopkinton Precinct Commissioners meet the third Thursday of every month here at Town Hall at 7:30. You are all welcome to attend our meetings. We have appreciated the help and the input of the Budget Committee and the citizens that have been putting forward public comments during this whole budget season. Our operating budget is going up. You can see my blue parentheses there by $2,204, which is with the after the reval, a rate increase of 3 cents per per $1,000. And as a note, the expenses incurred by the water district are paid by water fees. They are not raised by taxes. So when I read out the warrant, which will be, I think, our next steps after I'm done with this presentation, I just wanted to say that the number on our warrant is this all-in number for general municipal operations, and it's the 4 purple numbers combined, which is going to be $122,078. And again, I just wanted to mention that the very bottom line there, the water department fund balance, that's not their entire operating account. It's a little bit different because that's not raised by taxes. That's just fees. But so they're not draining they're draining their operating account in order to come up with the money needed for this upcoming year. They are just using a portion of it, and then the rest to be raised by this year's water fees. That's it. Thank you, Vicky. Sure. All right, so with that, we'll open it to public comment and questions on the Hopkinton Village Precinct operating budget. If you have any, please approach the mic or raise your hand on Zoom. Seeing none, I will close public comment on the Hopkinton Village Precinct operating budget and warrant articles. All right, so that went quicker than I expected. And so we are going to, at this point, adjourn the public portion of our hearing. After, it says it on our agenda here, but I'll read it out loud. After the adjournment of the public hearing, the Budget Committee will meet. The public is welcome to stay, listen, attend, but no public comment will henceforth be taken. Do I need to have a motion for the adjournment of this portion, Neil?
You can just declare the public hearing closed.
So declared. Thank you.
Oh, okay. MS 27 for the school. I think it's stuff we have to sign.
Need 2 more.
Okay. All right, so we will now move into deliberation by the committee and voting on each budget and warrant article. I was thinking we would go in the same order. We'll start with the town and move to the school and then the precincts. Is everyone agreeable to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Page 5 of our handout. As the
5. Okay, thank you.
Do not read it.
Okay.
Okay. Neil, can you remind me, do I or Ken need to read each
You
one of
do
these?
not.
Okay.
There's no reason to read them.
Okay. In the past, somebody has read them.
They have. There's no reason to read them.
Okay, so we can just
You're not
go.
moving the article. You're just
Where's the
voting
operating
whether to
budget?
recommend.
Article 7. Okay, So do you want, I can lead us through each article, Ken, or you can?
Sure, I can,
You wanna,
I'll move that the Budget Committee recommend approval of Article 3, the bond issue for transfer station lagoon closure.
Okay.
seconded? Okay, all in favor of Article 3? No, okay. Yeah.
Sorry. I think you might just want to see if there's any budget committee discussion before you call the vote.
And when you vote, I need a tally
Okay,
because the town voted to have a tally on the warrant.
okay.
Could I have a point here? I'm not sure where we are in this document that was handed out.
All right, so we are in this document
All right.
and we are on page 5.
That's-
And so there was a motion to approve Article 3 and it was seconded. So now I'm going to ask if there's any discussion before we vote.
I just want to make sure that the select board is prepared to answer that question related to the grant. So the article is not contingent upon that grant funding. And therefore, I just want to make sure you know that that will be part of the discussion at town meeting. So that's more of a comment than a question.
The answer is yes, it certainly should be discussed if it comes up.
Okay, any further discussion?
Justin, Charlie, if they ought to do that in advance, no, wait for it to come up, just explain it.
Yes.
That's what I thought too.
I think the answer is the funds are available.
That could be it. Yeah.
Further discussion on this item? Okay, then we will move to a vote on Article 3 bond issue for transfer lagoon closure. All in favor say, wait, so do you need me to do a tally?
Yeah.
Like one by one?
No,
Or
but I
raise
need
hand
to
tally?
know how
Okay,
many in favor and how many
all
opposed.
right, so we'll do this. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand. All opposed, say nay and raise your hand. Okay, so that's unanimous.
Okay, on Article 4, the bond issue for wastewater treatment facility sludge removal, I'll move that the Budget Committee recommend approval.
Second.
Okay, so a motion has been made to approve Article 4 and seconded. Any discussion on this? This is the bond issue for wastewater treatment facility sludge removal. No, okay. Moving to a vote on Article 4, wastewater treatment facility sludge removal. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay, so that's unanimous as well, Neil.
On Article 5, I'll move that the Budget Committee recommend approval of the bond issue for wastewater treatment infrastructure condition assessment.
Second.
Okay. Our motion has been made to approve Article 5 and seconded. Any discussion on this article? This is bond issue for wastewater infrastructure condition assessment. Okay. All in favor of Article 5, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay, so now we're, next page.
Okay, on Article 7, the operating budget, I'll move that the Budget Committee recommend approval of such.
Second.
Okay, and our motion has been made to approve Article 7 and seconded. Any discussion on this article? Okay, all in favor of Article 7 operating budget, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed to Article 7, raise your hand and say nay.
On Article 8, appropriation to capital reserve funds, I'll move that the Budget Committee recommend approval of such.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made on Article 8 to approve appropriation of capital reserve funds and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Okay, all in favor of Article 8, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed to Article 8, raise your hand and say nay. Okay.
On Article 8, appropriation to expendable trust funds, I'll move that the Budget Committee recommend approval of such.
Okay, motion has been made to approve Article 9, appropriation of expendable trust fund, and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Okay, all in favor of Article 9, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay. Are you getting the tallies okay?
I am.
Okay, great.
They've been pretty easy so far.
Hopefully it'll
Thanks,
continue. On Article 10, authorization to expend from pay by bag special revenue fund, and I'll note there are no funds to be raised by taxation. I'll move that the Budget Committee recommend approval of such.
I'll second.
Thank you. A motion has been made on Article 10 to approve authorization of to expend from pay by bag special revenue fund, and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Okay, everyone, or sorry, all in favor of Article 10, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed to Article 10, please raise your hand and say nay.
And finally, on Article 11, authorization to expend from Senior Center Rental Special Revenue Fund. And again, I'll note, no funds are to be raised by taxation. I'll move that the Budget Committee recommend approval of such.
Second.
Okay, and motion has been made to approve Article 11, and seconded. All in favor of Article 11, authorization to expend from Senior Center Rental Special Revenue Fund, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed to Article 11, say nay and raise your hand. Okay, thank you. I'll just remind, for the benefit of folks that are here in person, this is not the first time the Budget Committee has been deliberating over these items, so rest assured, lots of discussion has been had in the past.
I have the MS 737s, which everyone needs to sign before they leave.
Okay,
For
you want
the
us to
town.
sign those now for the town and then move on to the school?
Only
Or-
if you want to do it now or however you want to do it.
Okay, why don't we pass it around while we're getting ready for the school section? Where's our friendly? Where do I see it? Did I not grab my?
Five, the warrant articles for the school
We have a print handy. Is it in the drive?
from our last meeting, it should be there.
Oh, sure.
I'll sign this while you're ready. Sure. Neil, maximizing the efficiency of the evening.
I just don't.
Get
have
us
the handy in
out
front of
by
me.
10.
Would I find
There
it?
you go. Shoot that.
That'll be awesome.
Sign
Dinner is waiting for me.
cookies.
I've already even banana bread. I'm gonna go for pie.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my pen, yep. All right. We'll give Neil a minute to pull it up, and this is moving along anyway.
Can we do one of the precincts while we're waiting?
What?
We do a precinct while we're waiting?
Sure, we could.
Special ed budget. Is it in the budget presentation?
No, it would have been in last week's.
This is last. This is not last week's. Sorry.
Need the warrant articles.
Got
There
it.
we go.
Got
Okay.
it. Got it.
We're good.
There we go.
We're a little slow, but we get there
right.
eventually.
Do you want to kick us off, Rob?
Sure. I would move that the Budget Committee vote to approve the school district operating budget of $27,491,895 for the support of schools.
Okay,
Second.
all right. So a motion has been made to approve Article 2, the operating budget, and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of Article 2, the school operating budget, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay.
I move that the budget committee vote to approve, I guess, the cost items and recommend. There you go, there's the right word. Vote to recommend the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement, Article 3.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made to approve approve and recommend Article 3, the HEA contract. And seconded. Any discussion on this item? Go ahead, Mark.
So I was thinking a lot about your question earlier, Scott, about, or how influenced are we by the public comments that we hear? And I'm not influenced by straw polls or how many people get up to speak, because that's just sort of luck of draw of who shows up. But I do listen a lot to the public comments and think about, the points that people make. Because often, and this is why I'm not in support of SB2, because I have had my mind changed at town meeting and school district meeting from listening to all the really smart and informed and thoughtful people in our town. None of us up here has a lock on knowledge. And one of my mentors always told me that the smartest person in the room is the room. So I do really listen to what people have to say. And this contract is giving me some pause. So I just wanted to share out loud, and I'm curious to hear from other budget committee members because you've heard a lot of testimony too. I think the teachers in our town deserve to be fairly compensated. I don't have any negative feelings towards the contract that was negotiated. At the same time, there's a lot of things that have changed in the last couple of months, even since this contract was negotiated. And there are a lot, I feel this in my own personal life and in my work life. There's a lot of uncertainties that are out there in our economy and our federal and state funding, and they're real. And so part of me feels like it's really unfair to a contract that was negotiated over months in good faith based on a certain context. That context feels like it's shifting to me a bit. And so I feel a little uncertain about the duration and the increases that are in the teacher's contract. So it's giving me some pause. And I think I just wanted to express that. And if I'm the only one feeling that way, that's all great. If nobody else has any comments, that's fine. We can vote. I'm feeling some pause.
I have a comment. I was thinking along the same lines, I think, as Mr. Zucchi, looking up the consumer price index, which I know we've had a very deep, long, drawn out discussion as to whether or not that is an appropriate benchmark. But in economics terms, the CPI goes up, that means our money can buy less. And the CPI average over the last 4 years is 5% a year. So basically, unless you're getting 5% a year, your buying power is less. Over the last 4 years, we don't know what's coming, except uncertainty. We know uncertainty is coming. But in that light, it feels as though 4.75 is just a hair under having an even amount of buying power, and 3.75 is actually like having less buying power year over year. That's my thoughts.
I just want to clarify on that last comment.
Yeah.
Because we didn't quite present it this way, and Rob may disagree with my math, but I calculate the net increase inclusive of the healthcare to be 3.7-ish, depending on the individual and such. So I think that's what you're saying, Vicky. Is that where your 3.7 is coming from? Net of the healthcare changes?
Oh, no, I was just saying because the year two, year three, 3.75%. I actually wasn't thinking net. I was thinking gross.
So the net in year one, by my calculation, it's more like 3.7. And it doesn't matter what index you use, whether it's the PCI or the MCI or the CPI, they are all in that 3 to 4 range. So to me, that seems very reasonable, especially in the context of the comment was made earlier about New Hampshire teachers are exceptionally well paid. And I think in fairness, a lot of people would argue of those same people, they are in fact chronically underpaid. And New Hampshire teachers actually make substantially less than the national average and 25% below Massachusetts teachers. So, and to boot, if you look at the comment was made as well, Sarah made the comment regarding the living wage index. It doesn't matter if you say 0 children, 2 working people, one on every element of the pay scale. It is hard to make the argument that a teacher in this district is earning a living wage. So to me, that when we are in a teacher's market, that was another comment I appreciated to understand. When we're below neighboring districts, to me, this contract feels really reasonable in an effort to maintain this district's competitive ability to attract the best teachers in the state and beyond. And we compete in a larger district, a larger market context beyond just the surrounding districts. I mean, there are people who choose to live here instead of Massachusetts. And when you can make $80,000 as a starting teacher in some districts in Massachusetts, that's a tough ask. So anyhow, I support the contract as negotiated.
Oh, I think it's been no secret that I do have concerns about the contract. It's actually this year I've heard more comments and questions on this specific item than I have heard on the budget and all the other stuff together, which is unusual. As a taxpayer who'll be voting in secret at the school district meeting, I'm not sure yet how I will vote on the contract. But as a member of the budget committee, I think the contract was negotiated in good faith by the school board and negotiated in good faith by the teachers union. So I'm gonna support the contract tonight and let it go to the, recommend that it go to the voters. And I think that this is something the voters will discuss probably more than anything else other than the SB2 stuff at the meeting, and I think it's fair that they have their shot and see how it goes.
Yeah. On my 2 cents, I guess, for transparency. I think for me, this is actually not as tough as sort of the operating budget and other warrant articles discussions were, in part mostly because where I land is along the lines of kind of the points I've made along what you said, Charlie, and Vicky, which is if you net out the healthcare increases in the first year, that first year sticker shock number of 475 does come down to about 375, which is in terms of the new actual net increase that folks will see, which is more in line. And at the end of the day, I mean, you could choose not to go to college, pursue a trade career at this point, and make a lot more your first year as an electrician or a plumber than an entry-level teacher. And so I think that it's not a great situation when, electricians and plumbers aren't paid by the taxpayers. So we need to consider the entire community in these discussions. But where I net out is these are not exorbitantly high paid careers to begin with. We are fairly in the middle of the road in our compensation. And these adjustments are not wildly out of line. To Steve's point, ultimately the taxpayers will make the decision anyway.
Chris, there's just one more. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to throw the card of the healthcare moving forward. I would hate to see progress lost. I know we want to keep that going because in the long run, we benefit and the educators will benefit from the contract. So I just wanted to put that card out there.
Did you have an additional point?
I was just gonna say that I also think that the folks that negotiated this on the behalf of the town were listening as far as the trade that was made in an increase in salary with a reduction in the healthcare contribution, which makes a ton of sense to the town taxpayer. You're trading a fixed cost with an uncertain variable cost. And I think that's reacting to a lot of the comments that we've heard from people in the town of like, the healthcare is a significant issue and we don't know what it's going to be. And this is a significant step in that direction.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of advancing Article 3, the HEA contract to public hearing?
Actually,
Sorry,
you're voting on whether to recommend it or not.
Recommend.
You're voting to recommend.
Recommend. Thank you, Neil.
Sure.
All in favor of recommending Article 3, the HEA contract, raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay.
Next up is Article 5. I would move that the Budget Committee recommend the bargaining agreement between the Hopkinton School District and the Teamsters as proposed.
Second.
Okay, sorry, it's getting late. I apologize. A motion has been made on Article 5 to recommend it. That's the Teamsters contract and seconded. Any discussion on this topic? Okay. All in favor of Article 5, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed to Article 5, raise your hand and say nay. Okay.
Next up is Article 7. I would move that the Budget Committee vote to recommend the Special Education Trust Fund of $100,000 to appropriate $100,000.
Second.
Motion has been made on Article 7 and seconded. Any discussion on this topic? Okay, all in favor of Article 7 for the Special Ed Trust Fund, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed to Article 7, raise your hand and say nay. Okay.
Next up is Article 8. I would move that the Budget Committee vote to recommend the CIP warrants, raising $350,000 for the School District Building and Repair Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made on Article 8 for the Building and Repair and Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund and seconded. Any discussion on this topic?
Is this the one that Sarah Matson Dustin suggested is being underfunded?
Yes, this is the one.
Okay, just wondering.
Any further discussion on this item? I will note that I think I personally agree that it is still chronically underfunded, yet I take solace in the fact that we are still funding it despite what is inarguably a really tough budgeting year.
Yeah, it would make for a smaller loan down the road.
That's one way to put it,
Or
right?
the smaller.
Yeah. Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor of Article 8 for the Building Repair and Maintenance Expendable Trust Fund, raise your hand and say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay.
Next is Article 9. Would move that the Budget Committee recommend the Technology Trust Fund of $30,000, 15,000 of which to be raised through taxation as written.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made on Article 9, to recommend Article 9 and seconded. Any discussion on this topic? Okay, all in favor of Article 9, the Technology Trust, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay.
And Article 10, I would move that the Budget Committee recommend the $10,000 to be taken from unassigned fund balance of $10,000 as written.
Second. Okay, a motion has been made on to recommend Article 10 and seconded. Any discussion on this topic? This is the vehicle capital reserve.
Is the vehicle trust, yes.
Just a general question about all of these. Is it possible for someone in the town meeting to decipher the balance of any of these funds? Does that appear in
It'll be part of the presentation on each warrant.
the current balance?
Correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of Article 10, the Vehicle Capital Reserve Fund, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed, raise your hand and say nay.
I don't know if the Budget Committee does a recommendation on Article 11 or not. This is not our article. It was moved. That's the SB2 article.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just check.
So I think that concludes the school district.
Yes, thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you. Moving to the Kentucky Village Precinct.
Do you want to do these off this? I didn't pass this out or anything else.
You can recommend, or you can make a motion, Don, if you want, and I'll just kind of repeat what you say.
Okay.
There are only a couple of them, right?
Well.
Or
you gotta do
either
the
way.
Bond and anything that has money, right?
Right, any money related warrant article.
Okay, Article 7 is the issuance of bonds for the purpose of the water infrastructure improvements to replace the water system services, improving compliance with the federal law on lead and copper rule. The amount of money is $1,758,000.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
A second.
All right. So this is a motion on the lead removal for
$1,758,000.
758. Any discussion on this topic?
Did you have a second?
We had a second. Yeah, it's been it was seconded. Yeah. Okay, all in favor of the warrant article to raise 1.758 for the lead removal project.
Mhm.
Raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay.
Yeah, Article 8 is to see if the precinct will vote and raise and appropriate the sum of $89,603 for general government expenses.
Second. Okay, a motion has been made. This is the operating budget.
Pardon?
This is the operating budget.
Yes.
Yeah. For Article 8, the operating budget for $89,603 and seconded. Any discussion on this topic?
I'll correct that. Just the wording is for the general government expenses.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All in favor of recommending Article 8 for general government expenses, $89,603. Raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay.
Article 9, to see if the precinct will vote and raise, appropriate the sum of $16,000 for street lighting.
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made on Article 9 for street lighting. Any discussion on this topic? And seconded.
Second. Yep. You need a second? or-
No, yeah, it was seconded. Sorry, I
Was
was
seconded,
clarifying.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor of Article 9 to raise and appropriate $16,000 for street lighting, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay, the ayes have it.
Article 10, to see if the precinct will vote and raise the appropriate the sum of $487,751 for water distribution and treatment.
Okay, and motion has been made on Article 10 for water distribution and treatment funds and seconded. Any discussion on this topic? Okay, all in favor of Article 10 to raise and appropriate $487,751 for water distribution and treatment. Thank you. Raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay. Go ahead, Don.
Okay,
Sorry.
Article 11, to see if the precinct will raise and appropriate the sum of 85,000 to be added to the capital reserve fund for repair, replacement and improvements.
Can I get somebody to second that?
Second.
Okay. A motion has been made and seconded on Article 11. Any discussion on this topic? Okay. All in favor of Article 11, $85,000 for capital improvements
Yep.
reserve.
Yep.
Yes. Raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes have it. Did you raise your hand?
Did?
Okay, are you opposing?
No.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I raised it for aye.
Oh, okay, so did anyone raise their hand and say nay? I thought I saw it in my peripherals motion. Okay, great. Go ahead, Don.
Any,
Okay. That brings us to the Hopkinton precinct village.
Yep, that's right. Oh, thank you. That was cool, Rick.
Move to dissolve the precinct. Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding.
You can go ahead and insure the fire king. I'm just joking. It's not insured anymore. It's priceless. Okay, so I'm gonna read out my whole article. This is Article 3. It's the only money related article. To see if the village precinct will vote to raise and appropriate the budget committee recommended sum of $122,078 for general municipal operations. This article does not include appropriations contained in special or individual articles addressed separately. Is there a second?
second.
All right, motion has been made and seconded on Article 3 for general municipal operations. What was the number? Sorry.
122078.
122078. Okay. Any discussion on this topic? Okay. All in favor of recommending Article 3, $122,078 for general municipal operations, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay. Done?
I think so.
And any more? Do we miss any new?
I think you got them all.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So the town forms going around, I'm gonna print the school forms right this second.
Okay.
I don't know if, well, the precinct have.
I got it in this awesome trapper keeper. Okay, so nobody can leave until you sign all the forms. Okay,
It's that colonial.
there's lots of forms still to sign. You guys can leave.
Madam Chairwoman, when are we gonna eat our pie?
Right now, while we're signing forms.
Okay, so there's 3 pies back there, a blueberry pie, an apple pie, and a peach pie.
Oh, my goodness. Did I miss anything?
The form, no.
And there's whipped cream.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
So.
Seconded. All right, all in favor of adjourning? Aye. Thank you. Thank you to all of our civic participants who stayed till the very end.
Thank you.
And online. And Krista, Zoom is still recording at the moment. Okay, Zoom is still recording.
I'll let Neil.
I got it. I guess we all just have to write it out. Thank you, online folks. We are adjourned.
For you?
Yeah, these are mine.
Jesus.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter.
Do the first.
You think I should do the first?
Just the front.
Where's the phone? Don told me do not.
No,
Thank you, everybody.
yeah, that's the full McGill. Hey, we all used to have to do.
Just shut it
2.
off.
Now we got 3.
Three.
At least I know I.
What are you in progress?